I'd like to call this meeting to order. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call a roll?
President Hartstein.
Here.
Trustee Brimm.
Here.
Trustee Glover.
Here.
Trustee Berman.
Here.
Trustee Kahn.
Here.
Trustee Trilling.
Here.
Trustee Rubin.
Here.
Quorum established.
Thank you. First of all, I'll entertain a motion to approve our minutes of April 20th.
So made. Second.
Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, will the clerk call the roll?
Raymond.
Aye.
Glover.
Abstain.
Berman.
Aye.
Kahn.
Aye.
Trilling.
Aye.
Rubin.
Abstain.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call our village treasurer, Mr. Tenorelli, for warrant 1120.
Corporate fund, $333,884.88. Parking lot fund, $323.01. Motor fuel tax fund, $71,982.30. Capital projects facilities, $47,150.61. Capital project streets, $86,210.18. Health insurance expense, $53,855.95. Facilities Development Debt Service Fund, $725. Fire Pension Fund, $9,131.83. Water Fund, $48,443.11. Buffalo Grove Golf Fund, $11,501.51. Arboretum Golf Fund, $25,203.03. Refuse Service Fund, $50,000. Payroll period ending 4/26/09, $1,061,387.95. Total warrant number 1120, $1,799,799.36.
Thank you. Are there any questions relating to the warrant? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve warrant 1120.
Made.
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Raymond.
Aye.
Glover.
Aye.
Berman.
Aye.
Kahn.
Aye.
Trilling.
Aye.
Rubin.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Before we go on, I certainly like to just take this opportunity to welcome everyone here this evening. This particular portion of our meeting, or Part A, is basically our ceremonial portion of our meeting. We'll be having a regular meeting once the new board is seated. We'll adjourn this special meeting. But this evening, it's an exciting evening to welcome our two new board members, Beverly Sussman and Lisa Stone. And I'd just like to take this opportunity before moving on to just say how proud I am of the fine group of people that we had running for the village board. We were lucky to have so many great citizens who are willing to participate and serve our community. And I hope that those people who weren't fortunate enough to prevail in the election will stay involved and continue to serve the community as I hope they will. This evening also is an opportunity for us to thank a couple of our outgoing trustees, which we will do in a couple of moments after we canvass the votes with some special commendations, because we certainly like to thank Trustee Kahn and Trustee Rubin for their distinguished service to the village of Buffalo Grove. So thank you all for being here, and at this time I'd like to turn it over to our village clerk, Jan Sarabian, for a resolution relating to the affirming the canvass of vote returns.
I didn't know I was doing this. This is my fault. I didn't know I was doing this.
I'm just following the agenda.
Where is that?
Oh, we can't find the results. Oh, well. I guess it's a do-over.
Even though you didn't win it.
No, I don't think we want to do it again.
I spent my day at the oral surgeon, so I have a good excuse today. Resolution 2009-21. Whereas on Tuesday, April 7, 2009, an election was held in the village of Buffalo Grove, Cook and Lake Counties, Illinois, to elect 3 village trustees for 4-year terms each. And whereas there had been compliance with all applicable statutory provisions governing said election, including but not by way of limitations, notices, ballots, affidavits, judges of election, polling places, and conduct of elections, and whereas the appointed judges were qualified, duly sworn, and conducted the election pursuant to statute, and whereas the judges delivered the election returns to the county clerks of Cook and Lake counties, who kept them in safekeeping until they delivered same to the corporate authorities, and whereas the canvassing board duly canvassed said returns, now therefore be it resolved by the President and Board of Trustees of the Village of Buffalo Grove, Cook and Lake counties, that upon a canvass of the returns of the aforesaid election results attached as Exhibit A to this resolution, it is hereby affirmed that the election resulted in the following persons elected to the office in the Village of Buffalo Grove. Village trustees, Jeffrey S. Raymond, Beverly Sussman, and Lisa S. Stone are duly elected to the office of village trustee for a term of 4 years each. And that is the resolution.
I would entertain a motion to approve.
So made.
Second.
Will the clerk call the roll?
Raymond.
Aye.
Glover. Aye. Berman.
Aye.
Hahn.
Aye.
Trilling.
Aye.
Reuben.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Congratulations, you all stand elected. As I said a few moments ago, we do want to pay thanks to two of our outgoing trustees, and I do have a special resolution with regard to each of them and a token of our appreciation for their years of service. First of all, I have Resolution 2009-19, and I'd like to read this resolution at this time. Whereas for the past 20 years, Mr. Bruce Kahn has dedicated his time and talents in serving the residents of Buffalo Grove in a variety of roles. Whereas prior to his election as village trustee in 1991, Bruce served on the Community Blood Donor Commission and was appointed as a village trustee. And whereas in 1991, Bruce was elected village trustee, since that time he has held the following appointments: Blood Donor Commission, Arts Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, Residents Disability Commission, Youth Commission, Fire Pension Board, Police Pension Fund Board, Transportation Committee, Liaison to Park District, School Districts and Library Districts, Appearance Committee, Board of Health, Plan Commission, and whereas on behalf of the citizens of the Village of Buffalo Grove, the Village President and Board of Trustees, we thank Mr. Bruce Kahn for his outstanding work and dedication to service to the Village of Buffalo Grove. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Village President and the Board of Trustees of the Village of Buffalo Grove, Cook and Lake Counties, Illinois, the Village of Buffalo Grove hereby recognize Mr. Bruce Kahn for his time, interest, and many significant contributions. Entertain a motion to approve.
So made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Congratulations, Bruce. We also have a little Next, we move on to Trustee Brian Rubin. Whereas for the past 23 years, Mr. Brian Rubin has dedicated his time and talents to serving the residents of Buffalo Grove in a variety of roles. And whereas prior to his election as village trustee in 1991, Brian served on the Village of Buffalo Grove Zoning Board of Appeals, the Buffalo Grove Plan Commission, and served as village treasurer. And whereas, since his election, he has held the following appointments: Board of Fire and Police, Zoning Board of Appeals, Finance Committee member, Plan Commission, Board of Health Commission, Commission for Residents with Disabilities, Community Blood Donor Commission, liaison to both parks and schools. And whereas Mr. Brian Rubin is also tirelessly dedicated to the support and leadership of organizations which champion those with special needs. And whereas on behalf of the citizens of the Village of Buffalo Grove, the Village President and Board of Trustees, we thank Mr. Brian Rubin for his outstanding work and dedication to service of Village of Buffalo Grove. Now therefore be it resolved by the Village President and Board of Trustees of the Village of Buffalo Grove, Cook and Lake Counties, that the Village of Buffalo Grove hereby recognizes Mr. Brian Rubin for his time, interest, and many significant contributions. Entertain a motion to approve.
So made.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I guess there are none. Congratulations. This time it is my pleasure to introduce Judge Fred Levinson of the Circuit Court of Cook County, who will swear in the members of the village board who were recently elected. The first person to be sworn in will be Trustee Brimm. I'm not sure if the judge has some words he'd like to share with us before he starts.
No, I have to sign, and that's good enough. Please raise your right hand. Repeat after me, Mr. Brimm. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of village trustee
the duties of the office of village trustee
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Fred. Appreciate it.
Judge will now swear in Lisa Stone.
Sure. Please raise your right hand. Put your other hand on there. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of village trustee
the duties of the office of village trustee
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
There is one technicality. I'm not sure if you've done it. There is an oath of office that needs to be signed, and I'd invite the judge to have our trustees sign the... Right now? Yes. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
We want to make you official before you come to the dais. And now, we will invite Beverly Sussman to be sworn in.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully
the
discharge
duties of the office of village trustee
the duties of the office of village trustee
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Pardon, Judge? The clerk's signature. Thank you very much. Judge, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. At this time, I would like to invite our new trustees to join us on the dais, but, we'll adjourn this meeting first. I'd like to have a motion to adjourn this particular special meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. At this time, I invite Beverly and Lisa to join us on the dais. It is now my pleasure to call to order the regular meeting of the Village of Buffalo Grove this May 4th, 2009. And I believe no one will have any objection if we dispense with the saying of the pledge, considering the fact that we've already done that in the early part of the evening, and we have no warrant. So at this time,
Don't you want a roll call?
and we will call a roll call right now of our board. Will the village clerk call the roll?
President Hartstein?
Here.
Trustee Brimm?
Here.
Trustee Glover?
Here.
Trustee Berman?
Here.
Trustee Trilling?
Here.
Trustee Sussman? Here. Trustee Stone? Here. Quorum established.
Thank you. Under Village President's Report, first of all, I have a couple proclamations this evening. First of all, we have a proclamation relating to our emergency medical services. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of the Buffalo Grove Fire Department stand ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas to access quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. Now, therefore, I, Elliot Hartstein, President of the Village of Buffalo Grove, in recognition that the members of the Buffalo Grove Fire Department are partners in the community, do hereby proclaim the week of May 17th to 23rd, 2009 as Emergency Medical Service Week with the theme, EMS is a proud partner in your community. And I encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Proclaimed this 4th day of May, 2009. Also, we have an opportunity to recognize one of our own who's been with us for many years, and we do that by our Municipal Clerks Week, recognizing not only all clerks, but Jan Sarabian specifically. Whereas the Office of Municipal Clerk is a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the Office of Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants, it's not the oldest profession. Whereas the Office of Municipal Clerk provides the professional link between citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the municipal clerk serves as an information center on functions of local government and community. And whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the Office of Municipal Clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and annual meetings of their state, province, country, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the Office of the Municipal Clerk. Now, therefore, I, Elliot Hartstein, President of the Village of Buffalo Grove, do recognize the week of May 3rd through May 9th, 2009 as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our municipal clerk, Janet Sarabian, and all municipal clerks for their vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. Proclaim this 4th day of May, 2009. Let's hear a round of applause. Thanks for Jan. One of the things we're very, very proud of in Buffalo Grove are our bike paths and our bike system, and we have an opportunity because of this great network to actually be able to traverse the community in all over the place with regard to those bike paths. And we actually have, with this next proclamation, a Bike to Work Day week in Buffalo Grove. Whereas May 11th through 15th, 2009 has been designated Bike to Work Week by national, state, and local bicycling organizations, as well as state and local governments. And whereas 57 million Americans bike, 52% of the bike trips are for recreation, and 42% of bike trips are to destinations. And whereas bicycling is a safer and more efficient activity than driving a motor vehicle, thereby providing exercise, preservation of natural resources, and reduction of vehicle traffic and air pollution. And whereas the Village of Buffalo Grove has approximately 50 miles, believe it or not, of on- and off-street bicycle networks. Now, therefore, I, Elliot Hartstein, Village President of the Village of Buffalo Grove, do hereby proclaim and announce May 11th, 15th as Bike to Work in Buffalo Grove Week, and encourage our residents to join in and ride their bicycles to work. Proclaimed this 4th day of May, 2009. And that includes, you can go to the Metro so you can get to work once you get there with your bicycles. I do encourage everybody to use their bicycles. And not only that, we're very, very fortunate we have a police department that is so proactive in trying to promote bicycle safety with our youth. And this coming weekend, we will be having a bike rodeo where they'll have an opportunity to learn bike safety and practice those various bike safety rules, and have an opportunity to win some special prizes. So I'd everybody come out to the Bush Commons Park this particular weekend, and the rain date is the following weekend, to participate in the bike rodeo sponsored by our police department. Before I go on, I'd simply like to, at this time, once again, welcome our two new trustees, and basically state that I'm very, very excited to move forward with our newly constituted board. I know when we're all involved in elections, from time to time, the passion and the heat of elections sometimes gets intense. But when the election is over, we're all here for one purpose, and one purpose alone, and that is to serve the residents of the Village of Buffalo Grove. I am hopeful and I am confident that everyone on this board will pull together, will work together as a team with respect for one another and respect for our respective disagreements, which I'm sure will emerge from time to time, as they always do from issue to issue. But the bottom line is we're all here for that same purpose, serving the Village of Buffalo Grove. And I'm hopeful and very, very confident that we'll move forward in a very positive way, and I look forward to working with the entire board in that regard. And I thank you all for your service and your dedication, and I know the people of Buffalo Grove will be well served by this entire newly constituted board. Thank you very, very much. At this time, I'd ask if there are any reports from trustees. Trustee Berman.
Well, I will pick up with the same theme. I have a number of reports, but first I want to make a couple of comments about the transition on our board. Tonight we bid adieu to two retiring members of our board, Bruce Kahn and Brian Rubin. Between them, Brian and Bruce have served our communities in various capacities for more than 4 decades. Over the years I've been privileged to work with them. I've witnessed how they have embodied the true spirit of public service, elevating the interest of the community above themselves. They have each been key contributors to making this village an outstanding place to live, to work, and to raise a family. I know I speak for all of us when I say their knowledge, experience, and demonstrated wisdom will be missed on this board. I wish them well. In addition to welcoming back our senior statesman, Jeff Brimm, we also will welcome 2 new members of the board this evening, each selected by the voters in the April election. I know that Beverly and Lisa will bring heartfelt enthusiasm, fresh perspectives, and unique focuses to the board, which I'm sure will add depth to our deliberations as we move forward. And the village will move forward. In fact, one rational aspect of the state laws that govern municipalities is the fact that only half the trustees' seats are subject to contest in any given election cycle. This, along with the form of government in which the village manager is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the village, ensures continuity. By design, unlike perhaps at the federal or state level where one political party replaces another, an election doesn't really result in a change of government here at the municipal level. The work of the village goes on uninterrupted, and it will tonight and going forward. In thinking about the transition among the members of the board that will take place this evening, I've observed that a number of very different people have served as trustees over the nearly 2 decades that I've been involved with the village. Those individuals often differed in background, outlook, philosophy, and their approach to particular issues. However, each of them, and Bruce and Brian serve as prime examples, have understood that issues are most often questions of degree rather than black and white choices, and members of a board can and should have differences of perspective. What has truly set this board apart and what has made this community unique and special was not the absence of disagreements among elected officials, but the consistently professional manner in which they have been resolved. Board members elected by the residents of this village over the years have understood that divergences of opinion on the board are not personal in nature. They can be handled with decorum and personal respect, and they should not be perpetuated beyond the specific matter at hand. Once a vigorous debate of an issue is over and the votes have been tabulated, the result is accepted by all members of the board, regardless of which side they advocated, without descending into rancor, antagonism, or vindictiveness. Doing so is consistent with the role of the members of a deliberative body, ensures a solid foundation for building consensus, and constructively fosters the interest of the village as a whole. I don't want to sound sanctimonious or maudlin about this, but I think this is a lesson that bears repeating, especially tonight. We've just completed an election cycle that, I think it's fair to say, left in its wake a level of some raw emotions and unrequited animosity. But the debate and the election are over. The results have been tabulated, and just as we have always done with regard to disagreements related to village board business, it is time to move forward. And that admonition, frankly, must be taken to heart by my returning colleagues on this board, just as much as those who now join us and any others who harbor lingering sentiments. Not only is an elevated level of understanding from those of us up here on the dais essential, but an added measure of patience is called for as well for members of the board in order to ease the rigors of what may be a challenging period, particularly for our new members. As a group, I believe the village trustees over the years have shared a consistent priority and unity of purpose. First and foremost, to serve our residents, to work together, to find solutions, and to enhance our community. I know that Bruce and Brian have each always adhered to that maxim, and I thank you for doing so. I also know that Beverly and Lisa are committed to making our community a better place as well. I congratulate you, and I welcome you both to the board. And in the same spirit, I look forward to working together to advance the interests of our community.
Thank you, Jeff. Trustee
Now,
Brimm.
on a little less serious note, a couple of thank yous. The village staff and elected officials joined together with the Continental Restaurant over the weekend on Saturday for a Coffee for Cancer fundraiser. I personally want to extend a very special thank you to Pete and everyone at the Continental for your generosity in hosting the event and, of course, for contributing proceeds of the coffee sales that morning. This is just the latest in a long line of incredibly generous fundraising events hosted by the Continental for a variety of worthy community causes. I also want to offer a heartfelt thank you to everyone from the village staff and the village board who participated in the event. The combined effort of an outstanding local business, the village, and of course, the patrons and members of the community who made the effort a success exemplifies the very best of the generous spirit of our community. The event raised more than $400 in just a few short hours, and that money has been donated to the upcoming Relay for Life of Buffalo Grove Stevenson. Speaking of which, again, a reminder that the Buffalo Grove Relay will take place on Friday, June 12th, beginning at 7 p.m. and continuing till 7 a.m. the next morning at Buffalo Grove High School. It's not too late to support this endeavor by our community's young people. Please plan to join us that evening, even if you can only stay an hour or two, or of course if you want to stay the whole night. You can visit the ACS website to register a team, join an existing team, or make a donation. A link to the event website is available on the village's website as well. Thank you.
Trustee Brimm.
Thank you. I would agree with everything that Trustee Berman said, except for the senior comment. In the last couple of weeks, we've said a lot of good things about Brian and Bruce, and I just want to put my 2 cents in. And Elliott's done a very nice job in those period of time in his comments, and we've given them some parting gifts, et cetera. But I just want to make sure that the public and the community knows or realizes how fortunate we are, because Brian and Bruce both have given their all over the last some 15 or 18 years. They have unique talents, and they brought a unique perspective to the board, which I appreciated and I learned from. They serve with distinction, with unbelievable dedication, without any hidden agenda, any personal agenda, or egos. They work tirelessly. A lot of people don't realize it's not just what we see up here, the time it puts in for a trustee. There's a lot more time in committee meetings and other paperwork and other things that it has to be involved in. And for some 15 or 18 years, they've been involved in it. And I don't know if the community really understands and recognizes it, but they've done an unbelievable job in that respect. Over those 18 years, we get to know each other pretty well. And in addition to the fact that I cherish what they've done and how they've made the village better, I also cherish their friendships, and I hope and expect that those will continue. But what's really interesting about both of them is they were both on the board for a period of time, and then left the board and then came back. And what really shows their dedication and love for the village is the fact that when they both came back, and when they both left the board, I should say, they both came back and volunteered their services on other committees. So it wasn't just to be up here. They've dedicated themselves the last 20, 23 years to the village, and I want to thank you both personally. Thank you.
Trustee Stone.
Hi. Okay, I'm new to this, so hold on. I want to thank the community for supporting and voting for me. Your kind words and warm expressions meant the world to me throughout this campaign. There aren't words to adequately express my gratitude to my campaign team, and especially the core team. Your energy and commitment sustained me, and without your tireless campaigning, I wouldn't have this meaningful and great opportunity in my life. You are all incredible people. This was a grueling and contentious campaign, not only for me, but for my entire campaign team. My platform of heroin usage in our community and nation was at first considered controversial, as so many people weren't aware of the prevalence. But thankfully, the media has made everybody aware, as we all have to be alert and on guard to protect our youth. As if this weren't troubling enough, me and my dedicated campaign team were under attack by those that did not want my independent voice on board. The attacks spanned from the most severe allegations about my character to the most frivolous, such as the way I wear my hair. From the beginning to end, we campaigned with the utmost of integrity and honor and never veered from that. Ironically, while negative campaigning was targeted at me and my campaign team, as you all read, we were outrageously accused of the very things that we were being attacked of, or done to us. The perpetrator playing the victim. Fortunately, the people in our community saw the reality and voted their conscience. After such an experience, the likes of which I could never have anticipated, I am speaking up in hope that bullying tactics used to impede me will not dissuade others from seeking public office in our community. These mean-spirited methods to control who wins cannot be tolerated anymore, and it has proven to be ineffective. I want to point out that my core campaign team consists of the most honorable, dedicated moms and dads, PTO leaders, and even Apple Award recipients who dedicate their time and energy to this community. I hope they will consider running for public office in 2 years, as any honorable and trustworthy resident has the right to. I want to thank those that supported and believed in me, and ask that those who were tainted in their thoughts by others that didn't want me here to keep an open mind as to who I am. I am aware that some believe that I'm responsible for an automated telephone message that was randomly circulated throughout our community addressing another candidate's use of a Daily Herald article. I can assure you that I had nothing whatsoever to do with that, and my understanding is that a police investigation is ongoing to discover who perpetrated that act. I look forward to the discovery of whoever was behind that activity so that my name will be cleared of any involvement. A special thanks to my family and friends for being there for me, to my husband Gary for putting everything on hold, for my son Jordy in college for understanding my absence, and especially my son Jed, who endured quite an attack in his attempt to defend me. Thank you to David Stallman and Sid Mathias, my honorary chairs, for their continuous support, and to the man that sets the bar and what a leader possesses, retiring trustee Brian Rubin. I have been and will always be forever grateful for all that you represent. You are a true inspiration. So I look forward to getting on with the business of governing and do what is right and in the best interest of the residents of Buffalo Grove. Thank you.
Any further reports from trustees at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to our village manager's report. Mr. Brimm.
Thank you. I'd just like to invite Brett Krisk up to give an overview of the most recent Buffalo Grove Health and Wellness Fair. Brett quarterbacked and coordinated the Community Health Fair, the first ever in this room on Saturday, April 25th. The process has been concluded and evaluated, and Brett has an overview that he'd like to present to the board this evening.
Before you start, Brett, I would just like to extend on behalf of the community, as an intern, I think you really stepped up to the plate in terms of this particular project. This was a first for our community. It was an amazing, tremendous event in terms of making all of these health providers and so forth available and promoting them within the community. And it was a great day and a great event, and I look forward to your report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Bill. I'll try to keep this under an hour. Just kidding.
Didn't know he was a comedian, too.
The village, in an effort to showcase health and wellness providers in the community and alleviate high-stress economic times for residents, coordinated its first health and wellness fair on April 25th. There were 22 healthcare providers participating and presenting health information and various types of screenings. The event had a turnout of approximately 150 residents. We thank Panera Bread for providing refreshments. Those bagel sticks were pretty good, because I was eating most of them. Special thanks to village staff, specifically Susan Levy, Nidhi Vade. I cannot say enough about how much they helped me not only market this event to the community, but also helped me prepare. It took a lot of work, and it wouldn't have been done without them. Also, the public works staff, the health fair committee, and our volunteers. Also, I just want to thank Bill and Gita. They really guided me in this process, and they supported me as well, and I really appreciate that. In closing, due to the high interest and encouragement received by the community and the participants for the health fair, the village should continue to have this event on an annual basis and complement with the many other community programs it offers. This fair gives residents an opportunity to become informed about the information and services from local healthcare providers while requiring no cost from the village or community. That's all I have. Thank you if there are no other questions.
Any questions for Brett? Thank you very much. It was a tremendous event.
Thank you.
That would conclude my report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
At this time, we move on to questions from the audience. We do have an opportunity for those of you who are not familiar with our regular procedure. Anyone in the audience is welcome and free to step up to share any comments or concerns they have on non-agenda items at this time. When agenda items come up, we will certainly give anybody an opportunity in any agenda items to share your thoughts or questions or comments as well. So at this time, we'll proceed with questions from the audience. Mr. Stein.
Sure, Andrew Stein. Just real quick, I know that there are many people here tonight that have never spoke before you, and I just wanted to let you know that there are some people that are here to speak during the ordinances resolutions, and if you would, when we get to that, if you would set the expectations with them so they understand it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. As I explained earlier, if people do want to speak when we get to any particular item on the agenda, you will raise your hand and you have an opportunity to come to the microphone to speak. We typically will have an opportunity for the board to participate with questions and comments first, and then hear any questions from the audience, and then proceed with any additional comments that members of the board have or any other members of the public. At this time, we move on to the next item of our agenda, which is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is the portion of our board meeting whereby one routine motion, certain items are adopted. This is done to help basically streamline our meetings so that we basically don't waste a lot of excess time on things in which which are ministerial and which there is general consent. However, from time to time, people may want to remove something from the consent agenda. In such event, anyone in the audience, anyone on the board can request that an item from the consent agenda be removed. In that event, that item will be placed on the agenda and discussed in the normal course of our business this evening. At this time, I'd like to call on our village clerk, Jan Sarabian, to summarize this evening's consent agenda.
Thank you. The first item is Resolution 2009-22, authorizing the Village of Buffalo Grove and Commonwealth Edison to extend leases. Commonwealth Edison has approached the village regarding consolidation of certain recreational leases now in place between ComEd and the village. Staff and council have reviewed the proposal and concur with the request and recommend approval with authority given to the village manager to execute on behalf of the village. Resolution 2009-23, calendar 2010, village-wide contractual street maintenance program, motor fuel tax resolution. The subject resolution meets the requirements of the Illinois Department of Transportation in the use of motor fuel tax fund for the proposed calendar 2010 village-wide street improvement and maintenance program. Staff recommends approval of both items on the consent agenda, and that is a consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any requests that any item be removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda.
So made.
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Raymond?
Aye.
Glover?
Aye.
Berman?
Aye.
Trilling?
Aye.
Stone?
Aye.
Sussman? Aye. Motion carried.
Just for the benefit of our new trustees in terms of our sophisticated light system, in case since you haven't been up on the dais before, the way that the system works is if you would like to speak and be recognized by the chair, there is a button in front of you which you can push, and your light will light up. And when I see Trustee Trilling's light, I will call on Trustee Stone. When I see Trustee Rubin's light, I will call on Trustee Sussman. And eventually, we will change the names beneath the various lights before me so that I don't call you Trustee Trilling or Trustee Rubin. But that's how that works. And basically, and then if you change your mind and you don't want to do anything further or choose some that's already been covered by somebody else, push your light, it'll go out, and then I'll know that you really don't want to speak anymore. I typically try and call in the order that I see them, but not necessarily. I sometimes will go from one end to the other, depending on how many lights I have lit at a particular time. And that's so you understand the procedure for being recognized. At this time, we will now move on to ordinances and resolutions. And we have our first item on the agenda, which is item A, ordinance 2009-25. Trustee Brimm.
Thank you. I move for passage of ordinance number 2009-25, an ordinance amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance Title 17 of the Village of Buffalo Grove Municipal Code concerning intertrack wagering locations in accordance with the draft ordinance which is before us and dated April 30th, 2009.
Second.
Thank you. I think, first of all, it would be appropriate for our village manager to give everybody an understanding of this particular issue, to summarize the significance of this particular item, and then I may have some further clarification so everybody understands exactly what this item is and what this item isn't, so that we have a full understanding of the issue that's before the board this evening. Mr. Brimm.
Thank you. The item before the board this evening and for discussion purposes is strictly for the purpose of amending the village's comprehensive zoning ordinance and for no other purpose this evening. It's really in furtherance of a public hearing and a regular meeting held by the Plan Commission on April 15th of this year. And again, as noted, it's intended to provide for intertrack wagering within the Village of Buffalo Grove, and is only an administrative process that's required before any specific petition or use is entertained by the village. The village's zoning ordinance needs to be amended to provide, one, a definition of what an inter-tract wagering location is. That would amend Chapter 17.12 of the village's zoning ordinance to provide for that definition. And secondly, an amendment is proposed to section in Chapter 17.28 of the zoning ordinance, which really is specific to special uses. Special uses within the village establish criteria and standards that must be met before a defined use is approved, and in this case, specifically within the village's B3 Planned Business Center District. The amendments proposed, again, do not approve any specific use or a petition. The special use is critical in this nature in that it establishes and requires that a significant level of due diligence is required not only by this board, but by the Plan Commission, that should any proposed use be suggested, in this case for inter-tract wagering, that will be required to go before the Plan Commission for a public hearing, and further discussion by this board and passage of an ordinance that grants the a specific use. Again, as noted, this matter was before the Plan Commission on the 15th of April. It underwent an extensive hearing that was conducted by Chairman Ottenheimer and the rest of the commission that evening, and the commission moved it forward to the board for consideration and discussion this evening by a vote of 7-1 to again allow for the definition to be included within the zoning ordinance and also to provide for a required special use, again, within the village's B3 zoning district. And that would conclude my comments, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
I'd like to further clarify this particular issue. So everybody, this is obviously, sometimes it's complicated when we're talking about an amendment to our ordinances. And I think it's really important that people have an understanding of what we're doing when we're doing it. Under our zoning ordinances, basically, people need to understand that there are certain uses that are spelled out in our ordinances, basically as to what can go where, what's allowed. We have that with regard to our residences and so forth, and multifamily and commercial. And in the business district, there are certain districts, basically for business purposes, that in fact spell out what businesses can be there. In addition to that, and this is most significant that you understand that, in addition to those things that are listed, we have in our ordinance, and it may be good, it may be bad, but they're there right now, and it's maybe something based upon some conversations I've had with our village attorney where we may want to evaluate, well, we want to keep this language in our ordinances, but it's there now, and we need to appreciate that. As in the B district, in addition to, in the B1 district, for example, it says, in addition to the specific items that are listed, any other similar type retail store, office, or service establishment not specifically permitted in this chapter, but which has economic compatibility with the established uses on the adjoining premises. That's the language in the B2 that basically says, if the board, this board or some future board down the road, whoever that may be, feels that based upon those generic characteristics, that it's compatible and there's economic compatibility in the area, we could in fact allow that to proceed without any strings, without any rules, without any conditions, and that's what this board could do that, or some future board could do that. Similarly, in the B1 district, it states, any other similar type retail store, office, or service establishment not specifically permitted herein, but which is compatible with established uses in the surrounding area. Therefore, this is sort of open-ended. It's sort of, it gives a lot of flexibility to this board or some future board. If somebody comes in on any use that's not listed, and the board that's sitting at that particular time feels that, well, we think this, whoever's sitting here in the corporate capacity, feels that this is compatible, and compatible is a pretty broad term, with the established adjoining properties, and that means it's not going to be incompatible, and that's a very subjective term. It could be allowed, it could proceed. And obviously, anybody that's specifically listed could proceed. In addition, someone could, in fact, if they didn't get a zoning, they would have the right to possibly assert, they might have the right to proceed with that they said it's not compatible, they'll show, and they would have, might be able to even go to court and and make that argument. Whether they would prevail or not, obviously, is a question to be determined. If in fact something is designated as a special use, it gives some additional tools to this village which it otherwise does not have, to this board. With a special use, it allows us, when something comes before us and somebody wants to come into the community, it says, this is a special use. This isn't something that can be if the board sees fit or if it's listed. This is, if it's designated a special use, it must be specifically approved. And specifically approved means, in connection with that approval, the board has the right to impose any conditions that it feels it is appropriate to deal with that particular proposal, whatever it may be. A perfect example of this is when we were concerned about the proliferation of banks. And banks, they were allowed, it was listed, banks could be in our business districts. Well, we were concerned about that, but most banks happen to have drive-in facilities. Almost like 99% of the banks that want to open always want to have drive-through facilities. So we basically had a moratorium for a period of time to study how to best deal with this. And there was a recommendation that came back from staff and a special committee that looked at this. Well, one of the best ways to deal with that is to create a special use. A special use, and now, after that study, we made those drive-in banking facilities special uses. So no one can just say, I want to have a bank in Buffalo Grove with a drive-in facility, and they have a right to do it. They have no such right. We have a right to impose conditions. That is exactly the same thing that is happening here tonight. This is a text amendment to our zoning ordinance, which actually strengthens our ordinance so that there wouldn't be any discretion for this board or any future board to say, well, we think it's compatible. This would be designating an intertract facility, whoever that might be, as a special use. Therefore, it would give us the right to impose conditions that we felt are appropriate. And so once this is on the books, this doesn't do anything other than to give the village a tool which it otherwise does not have to say no, or no only if you do A, B, and C. So having something become a special use means that we can determine if, where, and under what conditions that particular use may be operated in the village of Buffalo Grove. So it's important to understand that this particular proposal tonight is not approving anything. It is not approving any facility. It is not approving gambling. It is not approving anything other than the right of us to say no and say this can be approved only if and when the village of Buffalo Grove chooses to deem something appropriate based upon the conditions that we say. And when we say, we have public hearings as part of when a particular proposal comes before us. And then in addition to those public hearings, we have open meetings. And people come to those meetings and they may have particular concerns. Based upon those concerns that are expressed at a particular meeting, we will then have the ability to say, well, based upon those concerns, we think we ought to impose some special conditions based upon the input and feedback we get from the community. If we don't have a special use, we have no right to say no if, in fact, somebody can make the argument that and convince a board that they should be able to proceed because they're compatible. In this situation, we can say no and we can impose conditions. And it's important that everybody understand the distinction of what is happening tonight and what this is all about, and what it is doing and what it is not doing. Trustee Sussman.
Well, now I'm confused, and I have to be perfectly honest with you. I believe that the vote we're taking is to approve of OTB being allowed in this village. Is that correct or not?
That is not correct.
The vote we are taking now, is that to approve gambling in this village?
That is not correct. What this particular vote is to say that if, in fact, and you can ask our village attorney, obviously, any questions that you have as well, but I'm trying to explain it as clearly as I can, that if someone wants to propose an intertract facility, that it will be deemed a special use. It'll be spelled out, which will mean that we would have the right to impose conditions upon that special use. And it's not approved. It's nothing can happen. It's there. It says we have a right to say no and impose conditions. If something is not a special use, we have no right whatsoever to impose conditions.
I'd like to table this motion.
And I'll second that.
This is a motion to...
I'd like to table this motion until the next meeting.
And I second that.
I thought you made...
There's been a motion made and second to table. There's no discussion on a motion to table. Will the clerk call a roll?
Raymond?
No?
Glover?
No.
Berman?
No.
Trilling?
No.
Yes, and I need to speak to this point, because this is really important.
Excuse me, you're out of order. We're taking the roll call.
Stone?
Um,
Sussman?
Yes.
Motion defeated, 4-2.
I'm not going to be silent on this. So tell me how I'd say this in order, because I have the ordinance in front of me, and we all know what's going on. And tonight, there isn't a passing of legislation that is going to allow for off-track gambling. And you told us last week, you told Bev and I that you would put it off for 2 weeks, and then you put it back on Friday, and you didn't tell us, but a resident did tell us, and we addressed it, and it's been an ongoing battle, as we all know.
You're out of order.
Well, if the public
You're out of
wants to
order.
know.
We're out of order. There's nothing before us right now.
Does anyone want to know?
No, you're out. No, wait, just a second. I will recognize you and let you speak when we.
Thank you, Elliot.
But just a second. When you make a statement that is incorrect, I'm going to correct it.
Well, can I ask the attorney then?
What would you like, if you have a question to ask our village attorney, you may ask the village attorney
Okay,
a
well,
question.
Bev and I both, and I think we're intelligent women. If this wasn't an ordinance to pass legislation, what has all the upset been about for days when we asked you to wait the 2 weeks? Why didn't you simply tell us, Elliot, this is what it is, all right? I don't know what words we're calling it, but we've got attorneys in the audience as well, and we've got attorneys on the board. We know we do. Can I ask the attorneys here, if this is not the opening and the entry into passing legislation for gambling, then what has all the fuss been about, and why didn't you tell Bev and I that? Because I know that it is, and I'm not sure how we're getting around that with words tonight, but I certainly know that it is. It was on the radio today, and the public knows. So can we just really address this issue honestly with truth and integrity?
If you have a specific question that you'd like to ask, I would invite you to ask it.
I have one. On the police blotter today, at the very bottom line, it said that at this meeting today, we were going to be voting on OTB. If we're not voting on that, then I don't understand what we're talking about. I really don't.
We are voting on a text amendment to basically say that off-track betting is in fact a special use. Now, I do want to clarify something, and obviously it's really important that everybody understand exactly what the situation is. I will acknowledge that I did receive a call from incoming trustee Stone requesting that the proposal be deferred because she needed more time with regard to this particular issue. And I said that, well, I'm not sure. I'll have to find out. I said I'll take it under consideration, and she said, and I'll have to find out some facts from the petitioner with regard to the proposal, because it was originally contemplated that the proposal from the Intertract Betting Company that was proposing for a particular proposal on Milwaukee Avenue was going to be on this evening's agenda. They had been led to believe that based upon from the scheduling and confirming with our staff. So I want to certainly make sure, it's important that when we're dealing with businesses, that we be business-friendly. If we tell a business we're going to be doing something, the last thing we want to do is let the word get out, well, Buffalo Grove says they're going to do something and then don't do it. So I thought it was important to check, to determine if, in fact, there would be any problem or would basically, in terms of with the petitioner, with not proceeding based upon the fact that even though they had understood that they would be proceeding. And Trustee Stone similarly indicated that she was speaking on behalf of Trustee Sussman. I also called Trustee Sussman, who similarly said that she wanted the proposal deferred. The agenda was not prepared at that time. The agenda had not been prepared at that time, and we have a procedure in the Village of Buffalo Grove where we have a preliminary agenda, which we all got, and including our incoming trustees, usually about a week before. Everybody knows what's going to be on the agenda as a proposal. And it's called a preliminary agenda. And basically, so if somebody wants to suggest something to be on the agenda, whether it be staff or an individual board member, they can do so. Well, in this particular situation, the two items that were on the preliminary agenda, there were two. There was the text amendment, which is what we have here this evening, and there was also the proposal from the Intertrack betting, I forget Intertrack Partners, LLC, who proposes to have a particular proposal for Milwaukee Avenue. Well, based upon the discussion that I had with Trustee Stone, I did not say I would or would not take something off the agenda. I said I would look into it.
I have an email.
Yeah, I
don't know the rules, sorry.
If you'd like, I will allow you to respond.
So long as I can speak, I'll let you go. Go ahead.
I'm happy.
He is the chair.
I'm just trying to explain, and you certainly can respond. But what I did is I called our village manager, and my village manager can attest to that fact. Our village manager, that I called him and said, there was a request by our new trustees in this regard. And I figured, well, I don't know I know the board was aware of this. I wasn't going to, I basically said, well, I want to do what's fair for our incoming trustees, if it's possible. If it's possible, based upon, and because I felt if two trustees say they want to have time, even though we didn't have to do it, and even though we're all here elected to make decisions and basically hit the road, once we get up here, the bottom line is if somebody requested that there be a deferral, I felt if I could, and it wouldn't jeopardize and be unfair to the petitioner as well, that we should try and accommodate that. And that's why I asked the village manager to check with our petitioner. And our petitioner said originally he had thought that they could only have a proposal because it has to be approved if there is an individual proposal by the Illinois Racing Board. And they originally had thought that there was only going to be a meeting in May. But he told Mr. Brimm that as it turns out, there will be a meeting in June, and they would have no problem with deferring their proposal for Intertrack betting. Subsequently, based upon that, I told Mr. Brimm, based upon that, I think we should accommodate the new trustees, and we should defer this matter to give them more time. So I requested that Mr. Brimm not put this particular item on the agenda with regard to the proposal. Mr. Brimm proceeded to write a letter, an email, to our trustees, and in that particular email, he referenced both matters. That's not what I had said to him, but he referenced both of them because he basically, that's what he referenced in his email that he wrote to the entire board. Then he called me when it came time to prepare the agenda, and he said, I want to clarify what it is where it's time to prepare the agenda. And I said, as far as I'm concerned, the only thing which we're going to defer is the proposal. And that's what was requested, and that's what I understood to be the request. And because they needed more time to evaluate the proposal, the text amendment, which is an administrative matter, there is no reason to do that. I know we're going to have a full board. This requires an extraordinary majority of votes. I want to make sure that we keep the text amendment. There's no reason to change the text amendment. So let's not do anything with that because that's not the proposal. That's an administrative matter, and therefore proceed to take the other thing off and leave it. That is exactly what happened, and that is and the agenda was prepared. Everyone on this board received the agenda, it received the agenda on Thursday. If someone didn't look at it or didn't have it, didn't take it, and it might be suggested that they didn't know it was there, it might be because maybe they didn't get it, if perchance. But I believe we make an effort to make sure everyone gets their agenda by Thursday evening, so everybody knows what's coming down the pike in terms of the meeting. So that was on the agenda. It was on the agenda when it was prepared. This particular item was on the agenda. This is the only agenda that was ever prepared. Nothing was ever taken off this agenda. Nothing was ever removed from this agenda. Nothing was ever put back on this agenda. This was the only agenda that was ever prepared, is the agenda that was before you this evening, and the village manager can attest to that fact.
I have an email that will show otherwise from the village. So, in fact, it's already at the newspaper, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. Can I put this all in layman terms for the people, for the village? Would that be okay, Elliot, at this point?
Feel free.
Thank you. What happened, if I can just take a moment to tell you guys what happened, and I'm a resident too, aside from now being a trustee, so these things really matter to me, and I like transparency, and I want you guys to know exactly what occurred, and I think Bev Sussman will, as you know, she's one of the best teachers in our community, so I'm telling it straight. We asked Elliot, I called Elliot last week on Wednesday, or Tuesday or Wednesday, to say, Elliot, please give us till May 18th, because to vote on it today while we're first being installed felt a little heavy to vote on such legislation. The text part of the amendment is the law. The part that they were putting off for 2 weeks was the location. Now, we could, whatever the legal terms are, my husband can tell you, and all the lawyers here can tell you, but I'm telling you that's what it's called. I've got the ordinance in front of me, section 17.12.298, intertrack wagering location, a facility licensed by the state of Illinois to conduct off-track betting operations. It's called gambling, in other words. So what was so upsetting about this, because whether you're pro or con, the fact that I'm con is just, I want to say, against the legislation, is secondary. What's concerning me is that we came to you and we said, would you give us the 2 weeks? I have the long email from the village board, as does Bev, that says we will honor and respect that request and we will give you till May 18th. That is what was said. Then on Friday, Andy Stein, who lives in the community, who has to be legally notified because he's within 250 feet, that's the legal minimum that you must tell someone. Well, this is, I'm sorry, what?
That's for public hearings. There's no...
Okay, well, he called. However he knew, Andy called. It's irrelevant whether the public hearing, I'm just telling you the story. He called to tell me it was back on the agenda. I called Bev, we were both very upset, and when I called to tell you that, you said to me, you only put the first part back on and not the second. And I said, but the first part you put on for Monday is the legislation that you're passing. And it was very, very upsetting. And you said, well, Lisa, that's how it is. And that's how we got here today. So what I'd like to talk about, if I can make a few comments now that I'm actually in a position that I could, is that passing what you're about to do, and I'm not sure, and I don't know how you could say that it's not an ordinance to pass OTB, because it is legislation. And everyone will have this, I mean, I have it at home, we all have it, I don't know, the newspapers covered it today, it's in the Countryside today, it's in the Herald. How could we call it something else? It is what it is. So what I want to say about this off-track gambling, or however we're introducing it, is that there seems to be some urgency to have passed it today. That created all of this trouble all over, that we were saying give us the 2 weeks. But somehow it had to be put back on without the email, without even emailing us to tell us it was put back on. You just put it back on. So when you say it wasn't there, I mean, that it was always there and nothing changed, yes, it did change. So that's just simply not the truth. So I have to be honest about that.
I'd like to respond once again when there's something inaccurate. You keep repeating that something was put back on. As I have made clear, and as the village manager can attest to, there was only one agenda prepared, and that agenda has been what we have before us. Nothing was ever put back on any agenda.
But then the email that said that you were taking it off, and I have the email.
I did not send you an email.
Okay, so Bill Brimm did it on behalf of the board. So if you're going to say that Bill Brimm did it just because he really had a need to do it, I don't think so. I think Bill Brimm carries out what the board asked them to do, the policy. So it's certainly not Bill Brimm that was trying to sent us an email on his own. Anyway,
I would like, for the sake of clarification, I think it's appropriate at this time.
Ask Bev if she got it.
I think it's appropriate this time, since we're talking about an email, that Mr. Brimm said. And quite frankly, I'm going to give this about 5 more minutes because this is not, we don't have a matter before us at this point. There's no motion.
There's a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, there's this particular motion. I apologize. I apologize. Just relating to this particular matter. I apologize. In terms of there was the motion that's pending. What I want to clarify is I believe that Mr. Brimm, since he wrote that particular email, should in fact clarify what that email, exactly what happened, because he wrote the email and he prepared the agenda, and I believe that Mr. Brimm can explain, since it's facts in his own words, so everybody understands what the facts are.
The facts, the email was dated, I believe, April 29th, which would have been Wednesday. We were in the process, the staff and myself were in the process of trying to work toward developing the agenda. The agenda is final at approximately noon on Thursday, so we can get out in time. So we're still in Wednesday, and we're still working on a preliminary agenda. And the discussion that myself and other members of the staff had with the village president, he is correct. We did talk about the matters and the requests from Trustees Stone and Sussman to remove and defer the matters to a subsequent meeting, whether they be the 18th, whether they be June 1st, to remove them to a subsequent meeting, based on the fact that they were being sworn in tonight and a relatively complicated issue and to deal with on the first evening. That was on a Wednesday. Again, there is no agenda at that time. The preliminary agenda that the village president is talking about is really a dynamic document that's created and continue to work with over a 2-week period between board meetings. Items come on, items go off, so it really isn't final until, quite frankly, until I decide with the rest of the staff that it's final and ready to go. At some point in time, you just have to cut it off and move forward. Thursday, there was, which would be the 30th, there was some direction and additional discussion with myself, and I do acknowledge I used the plural. I talked about matters in the email, and that's what went out. And the direction came back based on some consideration. It was a conscious decision to address, if possible, the text amendment, an administrative matter that while we discuss again, and the discussion went back, discuss the concept of wagering, whether we want to call it wagering, whether we want to call it gambling, whether we want to call it inter-track wagering, horse racing, whatever we want to call it, it came back to at least amend in furtherance of the direction from the Plan Commission, which is a pretty good vote with a 7-to-1 vote on the definition. We're adding a definition, and we're also adding and affirming, as President Hartstein discussed, affirming the decisions that are required to move a concept forward and adding the diligence and adding the requirements that this is a matter that's not by right, it's by really negotiation and special use and conditions, and amending the zoning ordinance to provide for that if there is an inter-track wagering location proposal brought forward to the village, that it is a special use and subject to all the criteria within the village's special use ordinance and needs to conform with the special use criteria that have been longstanding in this village. It's not something that we dreamt up for this issue. It has a long-standing history within the village's zoning ordinance. We made a conscious effort to re-add that item to the agenda, but without any specific use. That was a second matter that was discussed by the Plan Commission that did come out with an affirmative vote for those that weren't there, but again, it's not the subject of this meeting. That item is being deferred for, to a later date. And again, I think that's in furtherance of the discussion, and that would support what we did as a staff and how we continue to proceed along with this to develop the final draft of the ordinance with staff and council and put the agenda together, which came on Thursday afternoon, so we could distribute it in time for the weekend.
And is it not true that when I the only thing that I spoke to you about when I said there was a request for more time to study the proposal, that is what I referred to in my discussions with you, was the proposal.
Yes, that is correct. And again, as the President Hartstein mentioned, we before we went further with that, we affirmed with the assumed petitioner that the carryover of the item for a minimum of 2 weeks would not interfere with their business plan and the ability to meet with the Illinois Racing Board. We were working on several assumptions, and one is that the board, there's really not a lot of activity before that board, and they have a tendency more often than not to cancel meetings. They also have a meeting that they have a required meeting in Springfield during somewhat in conjunction with the Illinois State Fair, that they would not be meeting possibly until October in the Chicago area to entertain these kinds of issues and these questions. And we talked with the representatives from the assumed petitioner. They contacted the board, and the board is going to have a meeting in Chicago in June, and therefore, with a deferral, they didn't need to meet the May 12th. The original target date was try to meet with the board on the 12th of May, and they can meet on the 10th of June, so there's some flexibility with the proposal.
Can we talk about the actual issue right now? Would that be okay? Can I speak to this issue, because he was clarifying. Can I now?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I would urge you to focus on the motion that's before us.
I'm going to. I'm urged, but I'm actually focusing on the ordinance. I'm focusing on the ordinance that was told to me that we were voting on tonight, the text amendment, and I'm talking to that point, okay?
Thank you.
And to that point, that however you want to dress it up and call it, it is whether you want to call it legalizing gambling or the option to legalize gambling, or however you feel comfortable saying it. There is an obligation, I feel. While you met legal minimum, there was a philosophical obligation, at least to the people that live in this community. There's 45,000 people, and we have so many vehicles of communication. We have the e-news, we have the weekly, the Village News Magazine, we've got the Daily Blotter. Not a word was mentioned about legalizing gambling, or however else you want to call this ordinance. Today it was put on the blotter because we've been carrying on like this. So I would just want to be very clear that if there wasn't this big issue of legalizing gambling, or whatever this ordinance is called, which I do believe Bev and I have a pretty clear understanding since we argued the point with you guys back and forth, so I know what I'm talking about. I want to know what the urgency was that we're even having to pretend like it wasn't happening right now. There is an urgency to get this done tonight. We asked for the delay, it was granted, then it was removed without giving us the email courtesy back. You can ask the press that's in the room, I sent them the email, so the email exists. Secondly, legalizing gambling is significant, and it's rarely passed in the vast majority of villages. There was a concerted, I feel that, why was there not a concerted effort to inform the public and only bring it to the people that lived in the small little neighborhood over by where you were proposing, which, by the way, was closed down last month for 3 nights because they were serving alcohol to minors, and that's the hands that we're going to put it in. I don't understand that one. But there's so many communication vehicles. And there was a sting operation, by the way. The police actually knew that it was happening, so they went in to make sure, and certainly it was. So the whole thing concerns me altogether. Anyway, the potential of 70 to 150,000 a year. The board represents the people on issues of this magnitude we should have been informed beyond due diligence. The minimum legal requirement. There's a greater requirement at risk, and this is the trust of the community that you're dealing with. We need to keep them informed of issues that will impact the village they chose to live in. I hope this issue can be tabled until June 1st so that we can make an effort to alert the residents with all the vehicles I just mentioned. Even if you go to the website, you got to dig for it. It's not on the front page like everything else. They're talking about the symphony at Stevenson and the ice cream fundraiser. You got to look for it. That bothers me. June 1st, so we can make an effort to alert the residents so that we're considering legalizing gambling in Buffalo Grove, or the opportunity to, as you're calling it tonight. But I've got the ordinance, so I'll look it over carefully with my husband, who happens to be an attorney as well. But I know what I'm reading. And my main objective in tabling this vote is only because I want the community to have a chance to know what's going on. I walked around after I emailed, I Facebooked when I realized you were pressing to vote on it tonight. I did my own query, which I shouldn't have to do. The village should have done this. And everybody said to me, I'm almost done.
One second.
But I'm almost finished.
This is important. This is important. As a chair, I want to point something out. We had a motion to table. There is no discussion on motion to table. Your discussion now is directed to your motion to table, which has already been voted upon. If you have comments as to why we should not vote for this particular ordinance that we have before us tonight, that's what was before us. We had a motion to table. We voted upon it. That is no longer before us this evening.
Well, it's to alert the public, Elliot. Give them a chance to know.
Well, but we voted upon that, and that motion's been voted down. That's the way the process
That's why they're here tonight. Do you see? That's why they're here.
I understand that.
It's aggravating.
But that motion is after the fact. The motion right
But nothing
now,
should be after the fact.
The motion that we have on the table, for the sake of clarification, is a motion to pass a clarification of our special
Okay, so then
use.
let's all revote, like, can we vote our conscience now that we know the public's watching?
I'd like to talk if I have an opportunity.
Oh, please.
Trustee Sussman.
Thank you. I had two main reasons for wanting to table this for 2 more weeks. One was so that the community would find out more information about this legislation, and I believe a lot of people in the village of Buffalo Grove did not know what was going on with OTB.
Excuse me, Bev. Once again, I just need to clarify. You are once again addressing the motion to table, of which there is no discussion on a motion to table. What we have.
Can we revote?
What we have is a motion before us on this motion. I would entertain and encourage you to make comments on the motion. If I would welcome you to persuade, if you were against the motion, tell us why we should not, or anybody on the board, and I'm anxious to, I'm willing to hear what you have to say. If you have some compelling reason why we should not adopt the motion that is before us, and that is the motion to make this a special use. That is the motion that is before us, and that's what the discussion should be on. The motion to table is not, under Robert's rules, motions to table are not debatable. We voted upon it, and therefore there's no reason to talk about the tabling anymore. We've got a motion before us, so we should be talking about whether or not, and I'd urge you to focus your comments on that so we can move the meeting along, and everybody who has something to say, including members of the audience if they have them, as to why we should not adopt this particular text amendment this evening.
I did a great deal of research on this topic because I was so positively sure that it would be a question on the forum at Buffalo Grove High School. And I researched it for 2 weeks, and I came in with folders of information, which I showed Dr. Smith at the end of the forum. I said, how come the question on OTB was never asked at the forum? And I showed him all of the materials I had brought in. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about some of the things I found out. And I condensed it so I would not take up a lot of your time. The word OTB sounds pretty good, but whether you want to believe it or not, OTB is gambling. Gambling is an activity characterized by a balance between winning and losing that is governed by a mixture of skill and chance. A gambler is a person who wagers money on the outcome of games or sporting events. So OTB is gambling, whether we want to say that or not. Many of us might not even live close to where the proposed site will be when they vote on it, but it is part of Buffalo Grove, and what we're talking about right now is gambling in the village of Buffalo Grove. The village of Buffalo Grove has a budget of $60 million plus. Now, I've listened to Intertrack Partners talk for 3 presentations. It started out where we were going to make $15 million, and we were getting 1% of that, which was $150,000. Then the last time, it was between $100,000, between $10 million and $12 million. The last time, there was something about $7 million in the paper, which meant we would now get $70,000. Are we willing to sell out Buffalo Grove for $70,000? Are we willing to sell out Buffalo Grove for $100,000? What is the image of Buffalo Grove? Let's look at the larger picture of Buffalo Grove, which is very near and dear to my heart. Will OTB, will gambling make the village of Buffalo Grove a great village? Will gambling make this a great place to live? Will people want to move here because we're now allowing gambling in the village of Buffalo Grove? People move to Buffalo Grove for many reasons. We have a wonderful education system. We have an award-winning park district. We have award-winning fire department and police department. Why would we want to tarnish that for so little money to become a town known for gambling? When the village of Buffalo Grove was selected as one of the 50 best villages in the country, one of the criteria was, and I looked all of this up, one of the criteria was cultural activities. Nowhere did it say that you have gambling in your village. One thing I find very disturbing, that goal number 2 for the village of Buffalo Grove states, we want high quality retail, commercial, and industrial businesses. I do not consider gambling high quality. If you go to Facebook, there is a site that's called You Know You Live in Buffalo Grove If. This was sent to me during my campaign. There are some very humorous things about it, but there are some very serious, unflattering, terrible things about Buffalo Grove. And you know what? Now they'll be able to add one more. You know you live in Buffalo Grove because you can gamble in Buffalo Grove. There's no gambling in a lot of neighboring communities. They tried to get it, but they voted it down. Barrington's Plan Commission investigated OTB very carefully. They went back to Intertrack Partners and asked them to please come back with answers to 5 questions. They didn't. Intertrack Partners never answered those 5 questions, and it was dropped from the village. I urge the trustees for the Village of Buffalo Grove to please think long and hard before making this decision that will have a terrible effect on the Village of Buffalo Grove and change our image and our reputation forever. Thank you for listening to me.
Trustee Berman. There was a question posed earlier by Trustee Stone, and I think it's appropriate that we direct a question to the village attorney. The village president was, I think, attempting to explain the nature and effect and impact of the actual proposed ordinance that's before us tonight. And there was some skepticism expressed as to his explanation for what that ordinance will do, what it means, what its effect is. And I would ask you if the village attorney can describe for the board, for the public, in your professional ability, what we are actually doing tonight, what the impact of this ordinance is, and whether the description that the chair provided, essentially that this is not to approve gambling, but to impose conditions on a use that's already legal, essentially under the ordinance anyway, is an accurate description.
I think that my short answer is yes, it's an accurate description.
Oh, so he's ready.
Okay. I'll defer to Trustee Brimm.
I'll give everybody a chance. After the trustee has spoken, anybody will have an opportunity to speak. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple comments first. As to a little bit of response, I know we've already had voted on the motion to table, but I also received that email, but I received the same time you did. I had no communication before, and there was no conspiracy or anything to withhold information or to try to change things. We got the information when you did, and when I got it, I was really upset because this
Yes,
isn't
I
the
know.
first thing. Pardon?
I know, you responded.
Okay, well,
Sorry, okay.
please,
I got to learn the rules, I'm sorry.
Basically,
just courtesy, okay?
Okay.
Just-
Basically,
Thank you.
so everybody
Just-
understands.
I'm frustrated with
When
this.
everybody understands the procedure, the chair will call on people when they light the light, and when someone is speaking, we try and give everybody an opportunity to speak until they're finished, and when lights are back on, we call on people whose lights are lit, and I give anybody has an opportunity to speak, and that's, I mean, we have one thing I take pride in the Village of Buffalo Grove, is anybody on this board and anybody in this community who wants to say anything. I mean, you can go to a lot of communities, and they have well, if you don't tell us ahead of time and so forth, you can't speak. If you don't give us a card, what you're going to say. Anybody who wants to say something in the Village of Buffalo Grove is going to have an opportunity to speak. I don't care if we're here until 2 in the morning. You will speak if you want to speak. And then obviously, some people may make a motion to adjourn, which I might. Maybe I won't be here.
Ellie, can I speak now?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is not new to the board, okay? We've been discussing this for a year, Bill, 2 years possibly, when they first brought it to us. It's been in front of the board on numerous times. We had some proposals. It went to the Plan Commission, I think, regarding escape that thankfully didn't go through. It was discussed at one of the forums, because I know I brought it up as far as economic development. It was at a meeting where the two of you were at. In fact, Lisa, you were in the front row when it was proposed and it was sent to the Plan Commission. Neither one of you had any objection. Neither one of you spoke at it. You had an opportunity to go to the Plan Commission. I know Bev was at the Plan Commission. I don't think you were there, and had an opportunity to listen. I know other people gave their opinions. It's not like we've just sprung this on you. This has been going around for a long time. If you didn't know what was going on in the village prior to April 7th, I'm sorry, but a lot of people did. It's been on the on the cable. It's been, there's going to be, there's public notice of it. It's been on Channel 6. That meeting was on Channel 6 for about maybe 8 or 12 times. It's there. The reason to defer, I'm not sure, okay? Because I understand your positions, okay? I don't need the body language, Lisa, okay, please. Lisa, I know that you're against it. That's fine. I respect your opinion.
Not that I'm against it.
No, please.
I'm against the
No.
process. Deanne, I was talking to Jeff.
I've got this microphone right now.
Mr. Trustee Brayman has the floor.
I understand your position. I accept your position. I respect your position. Bev, I've talked to you several times. In fact, this afternoon we talked about it. I understand it. I understand what you're going for. I don't have a problem. If you want to vote no, vote no. If we're going to, I would suggest we vote no. I'm upset that we didn't vote on all of it now, because if we voted yes, we can move ahead and we start gaining the benefits from it. If the vote is no, then we can move on from there, and the developer can figure out where they want to go from here. What we're doing to the village and to the developer by prolonging it is a disservice to both. If we're going to vote for it, let's vote for it. If we're going to vote against it, let's vote against it. Thank you.
Trustee Stone.
I'd like to bring to your attention that the off-track betting was brought about a long time ago to considered to be an escape, to go into escape, except the synagogue that was within 500 yards or feet made it impossible. So it was dropped, and that was what, a couple years ago? Was that when that happened? You guys would know better. What? Pardon me? 2007, you say? Okay. So it was dropped. It just came about on March 23rd. March 23rd. I did my homework on this. I have it in front of me. And by the way, thank goodness for Commissioner Cohn, who spoke up very, very clearly at the commission. He was that one lone vote that voted no. And he said, it's whether or not the village, it should be vetted more thoroughly by the community at large, and he does not feel this process has been done adequately to this point. I'm not sure why you didn't hear that when he said it. So you brought it up on March 23rd again after 2 years, so it's not like we've been grueling through this for 2 years. It just came up on March 23rd again. 5 weeks later, we're rushing to vote for whether it's legalizing gambling or the opportunity to legalize gambling. I think the community, actually, if you had brought it to the news like we really should have, and I hope from this point forward we always will on every way that we can. We've got Village E-News, we've got the Blotter, we've got the Village News. We didn't go on there at all. I don't know if there's an explanation for that. All I know is from this day forward, we need to be on there. And the community, by their presence right now, I think you guys are hearing, they really don't. At least, if they don't want gambling, they at least want you they want a chance to hear more about what it is you're doing, because they didn't know. I can tell you personally, I was at Arlington Racetrack yesterday at the Cured Foundation event. There were hundreds of Buffalo Grove people there. They were in shock. Intelligent, really intelligent people. They had no clue. That should concern you guys. I'm just saying, doesn't it concern you? Shouldn't we table it for that very reason, that your constituents had no clue? That's troubling. That's my issue. Win or lose, or pro or con, it's the issue of that you need to be transparent and tell the community what you're doing, and you did not.
Trustee Sussman.
It's unfortunate that we're starting out with this issue, because it looks as though we're dividing the new people against the existing, and I think that's a terrible picture to paint for the community. Lisa and I may never agree on another topic. It just so happens that on this particular one, we agree. I've worked with all of these trustees as a member of the Commission for Residents with Disabilities for 14 years. Many of them have been liaisons to the commission. I've met them and known them throughout those 14 years. I respect them. I think they respect me. And I just feel we're off to a beginning where it's like two against the rest, and I don't want it to appear that way. This is one issue, one thing that we're in favor of together. It doesn't mean that this is how it's going to be. It doesn't mean that we want to oppose the trustees, not at all. And I just hope you realize that.
Same.
I thank you for making that point. I think, obviously, and that was the point that I made at the early part, that I certainly respect everybody on this board and their ability and willing to speak vigorously about their opinions, whatever they mean, and passionately, and that they should fight for what they believe in, whatever that may be. But I just hope that we can all respect each other and respect each other's opinions. And obviously, we may agree, some people may agree on this issue, some people may disagree on other issues, but your point is well taken. question, and I think it's a really important point. And those of you who are watching this meeting at home, I think it is important you understand this happens to be an issue where it's ironic that it appears that the two no trustees happen to basically be of the same mindset on this particular issue. But that doesn't mean that everybody's going to agree. Well, we have never had factions on this board at no time. We've always had everybody has done what they've thought and voted their conscience in terms of what they thought is the best interest of the Village of Buffalo Grove. If anybody in the audience would like to speak, I would urge you to go to the mic and line up by the mic and state. And when you do, would you please state your name and your address for the record, so that we may have a record, and share your comments. And the other thing is, I would urge, if something has already been said by a previous speaker, I would urge everyone to basically not be repetitive. Please try and just say something new that hasn't already been said. Please proceed. Thank you.
Lenny Kaplan, 2901 Dalton, Buffalo Grove. It seems like you're arguing about different things. These two are clearly against it, and you're talking about that they're just that you're not even voting on gambling tonight. But if we knew from you guys if you are for gambling or not, it wouldn't even really be relevant. Okay? If you want to change the law a little bit so that you can protect yourself, if you're against gambling, then we kind of know. You're fighting different arguments right now. It seems to me we clearly know where these two stand, but I'm not sure where the rest of you stand as far as wanting it or not wanting it.
Well, first of all, just for that point, and that's an important point. What we have before us this evening is a text amendment on a special use. We do not have the proposal for a particular someone who wants to come into the village to have an establishment. That particular matter, so that there would be ample time for the new trustees and anybody in the community, for that matter, who wants to come back, who wants to contact us with emails, with phone calls, or letters, or anything you want between now and the next meeting when that particular proposal is on the board.
So I can assume that the rest of you are kind of on the fence. It depends on the proposal, where these two are not at all on the fence.
I believe the proposal. I don't know where everybody stands. I can't speak for everybody, but the fact of the matter is, when we have something before us, I would hope that everyone on this dais would come here when we have a proposal before us, and they would at least have an open mind, so they hear all that has to be said, not from the petitioner and from the residents. And based upon weighing what is said from the petitioner, from the other residents, from the other discussion at the board and of the board, that after that then we will make an intelligent decision on any particular matter that's before us. Now, obviously, of course, some of us are going to have preconceived, notions. But the fact of the matter is, the ideal way for us to operate as a board is to operate with open minds and be willing to hear out anybody and everybody. And that's why that's why I believe and I'm so committed to having open meetings and hearing what everybody has to say. So there'll be ample opportunity for anybody who's opposed to the proposal to share any of their thoughts and to come back and storm the Bastille and come back to our next meeting. And there's no proposal before the board this evening.
Okay.
Just excuse me, before we go, Trustee, I'll get back to you. Trustee Trilling has not spoken.
Thank you. I'd like to try and answer your question a little bit, a little calmer than maybe everybody else has gotten a little excited these days. This is no different than something else that we have done recently, and recently meaning I was on the board at the time, and I'm just guessing if I said maybe 4 years ago?
At least 4.
At least 4 years ago. Whether you're for or against wagering or gambling, it's immaterial. We passed an ordinance a number of years ago related to adult entertainment. It had nothing to do with whether or not we were for adult entertainment in the village or against it. We wanted to have a vehicle or an avenue to control adult entertainment so that adult entertainment doesn't show up, as an example, on the corner of Wyland and Deerfield Parkway. So what we did was we passed an ordinance that allowed adult entertainment in the industrial district as a special use. What that did was it gave us a great deal of control over how adult entertainment, if it was ever going to come to the village, how it can come to the village and be presented to the village versus keeping the books the way they are today, and in theory, adult entertainment could have gone any number of places, okay? So what I'm getting at is trying to answer your question. It's not a question of whether any one of us are for or against gambling or inter-track wagering or any other proposal. It's about governing, and it's about governing.
I understand, but
Okay.
if that, supposedly there were originally two ideas here, right? And the other one was shelved. Right now,
I'm sorry, can you use the microphone because this way people can hear you?
originally there were two ideas here, and the second one, the actual proposal or the idea was shelved. So now we're just voting on trying to amend the rule.
No,
I get that.
What it is there
Yeah,
is.
so you can control it. I understand that, but there was another thing that isn't
There's a second
being
part.
discussed.
Okay, there's a proposal that has been brought to the village that has been gone through the plan commission that it will be in a future meeting, in which case someone is making a proposal that if
I get it.
this-
So but we're probably a little closer to the actual happening than when the adult entertainment thing went. And you were just trying to change the rule in case someone came. So I'm just saying, if we're obviously that kind of close, I'd kind of like to know what other people think.
and I agree. I agree.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
There should. I was trying to
The
clarify.
rest of the argument here, we're really not that interested in.
Right.
You guys yelling at each other.
And I hopefully, as time goes on, I'm hopeful that people on the board will understand the process and understand the way that business is conducted, whether it be way of Robert's rules or decorum or whatever those things are. And it's just going to be a learning process. So I'm sure that people on the board, both sitting and people who have just recently joined, will still have their enthusiasm, still have their vibrancy, but on the same token, respect other people and allow them to speak when it's their turn or when it's other people's turns.
Oh, I agree.
Thank you.
Still don't have an answer.
Thank you, Steve.
Lenny Kaplan for trustee. Kurt Mass, 1567 Rose. Mr. President, I understand your attempts to clarify, and we're really not that stupid that when you say there's no proposal here tonight, there is a proposal in the village, okay? You've named the partners group Intertrack Partners. So these people are here and they're proposing, and if it's not this meeting, it'll be the next meeting.
That is a proposal. Just go ahead.
If you're trying to tell me that you can't restrict gambling in this village without this ordinance, gambling's a licensed, adult entertainment's not a licensed thing. They have to get a license for gambling. I mean, you of course it's illegal here. You don't need this law to make it, to stop it from happening.
That's not.
We just had an election, a local election. This is a big issue. Why was this not put on as even an advisory referendum 3 weeks ago so you could have an idea of what people thought? This was really kept quiet all through this election so nobody could be held accountable. I find that to be really distasteful. I really do. All of a sudden, right after the election, this is brought up. Can you tell me, it's your name on here, why this was... Why didn't we have anything on the we're voting whether to receipt, whether it's a receipt from the county, I mean.
Well, I don't know what you say, secede from the county. That's not our proposal. That's nothing to do with us. When you say my name's on it, there's a reason my name is on it. It's because I'm the liaison to the Finance Committee, and this is a financial matter, so that's why my name's on it. But I will tell you that it did come up at a forum. I raised it. It was up before the election, and Lisa Stone just mentioned that it was just up again basically in March. First of all, there'd be no way of putting an advisory referendum up at that late date. It would have had been on the referendum approved, I think, in January or earlier for that. You asked me a question, so let me respond to it. And lastly, is the fact that everything doesn't go to referendum. You don't govern by referendum. You elect people, and you hope that they're going to do what they think is the best interest for the village, period. Otherwise, everything we do is going to go to referendum. Nothing you can get accomplished.
This is kind of a big issue, and also we will remember how people vote, so it's kind of rough. I have another thing. You said she brought up that it just came out March 23rd.
That's
but just before you said it was been around for 2 years.
The concept itself, the concept has been out.
Use an argument when it works for you.
What I mentioned is the fact of the referendum. The referendum, if it was somebody, if she wanted to,
referendum could have been put on.
If you're going to let me talk or not. Okay, go ahead. You've got the floor.
I have one last question. Are you for or against gambling in Buffalo Grove?
Pardon?
Are you for or against gambling in Buffalo Grove?
Right now, first of all, the ordinance. Are you going to let me finish or not? I will answer the question. The proposal is before us now, the one that will be here, I don't know if it's the 17th or the 2nd, has certain provisions in it, certain restrictions. My general feeling is, yes, I'm in favor of this proposal. However, in order for me to vote for it, there have to be certain requirements and certain protections for the village. If we don't get those protections, I will not vote for it.
Trustee Glover, you for or against gambling in the village?
No, excuse me. If you have a statement, ask a statement. We're not polling the we're not polling the board. We're not polling the board. If you have questions, ask a question.
Greetings. My name is Simona Citron. I serve on the board of directors for the new Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center. I'm a professor of finance, accounting, and business ethics. This evening, however, I speak to you as a mother of two and a Buffalo Grove resident. I have to tell you, Elliot, with all due respect, I'm a University of Chicago graduate, but my head is spinning from the convoluted rhetoric speaking about whether this is an ordinance for a law or foreplay for the ordinance for a law. So this being said, I'm just going to go forward with my thoughts, as is my right, I believe. I'm assuming that you've run a thorough cost-benefit analysis from a financial standpoint and that your numbers are correct, so I won't belabor this. This said, I ask you, like Bev, to consider how 100 to 150K, and I'm assuming that's net, warrants the potential compromise of our safety and reputation as a community. This may not be the most cosmopolitan town, but we have very real, tangible reasons for residing here, not the least of which are great schools, a feeling of community, and a safe haven for our children. Certainly, there is a place for consenting adults to smoke, drink, and gamble. I would argue, however, that Buffalo Grove is not that place. Clearly, there may be some that do not share my views, but the residents, like everybody has mentioned, should have been duly notified regarding a matter of this gravity, and I am assuming that the democratic process is alive and does apply to Buffalo Grove. It is ineffective to govern like the proverbial ostrich. One simply cannot make things disappear by pretending they do not exist. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Tracy Jacobs, 2850 Roslyn Lane. Steve Trilling, I just wanted to say thank you for kind of trying to explain it. I was sitting here before, and with all this conversation going on, I felt like this was just for you passing this little ordinance that explains that it will try and protect Buffalo Grove. If it comes in, I feel like it's the foundation to allow it to come in, and I don't feel comfortable with that. I do understand what you were saying, that if in fact we do give the verbiage to this, that then it will be okay if it comes in. I'm still not feeling comfortable with us even talking about it and putting it into words, because if you allow the foundation for it, then it just takes 10 baby steps for it to come to fruition, and I'm not comfortable with that.
My name is Barnett Fagel. I live at 224 Stanton Court West. I've been a resident of Buffalo Grove for 9 years. I grew up on the North Shore, and I never thought I'd live to see the day where the interests of my kids, my neighbors' kids, and everyone else, and a promise that the village made on their very website says a family community. This is a rhetorical questions that follow now. Where does it say that gambling is a family activity? Go to Vegas, go to some other gambling boat and do it there. Keep it out of our village. Why do you think they don't allow it in their synagogues and schools? Is there shame involved? Are they something to be embarrassed about? I think so. The only thing more shameful than the gambling is the speed with which the foundation is trying to be set to allow it to enter. In closing, I will leave you with a thought from Samuel Adams, and it says, when the people are afraid of the government, it's tyranny. But when the government is afraid of the people, it's liberty. Thank you.
Good evening. For introduction, my name is Gregory Schomburg. I live at 246 Mohawk Trail. You have to forgive me, I'm not much of a podium speaker. I tend to wander a little bit as I talk, so if you'll bear with me for a moment. I'm not used to being behind the podium. I'm more of a wanderer. So.
Your name's not Liddy Dole, is it? No.
Pardon?
Never mind, never.
Well, I wanted to thank you, to begin actually, by thanking you for the opportunity, President Hartstein, the trustees, for actually allowing us to have a little bit of an open dialogue. I think that's duly noted and to be commended also. Because without that, we would be ideally just doing this behind open doors. And if I could just take a few moments of your time and share a few thoughts. I also wanted to thank, obviously, Intertrack partners. I don't know if there are people here tonight that represent Intertrack, and I can't assume that everybody that's here is all of one mindset. However, I do think that, obviously, an enterprise such as Intertrack coming here and expressing interest is something also to be noted. We may not all agree with it, but I also think that's something to understand. As I look forward and kind of as I got the news.
Where does he live? Are you from Buffalo
Yeah.
Grove?
Yeah, 246 Mohawk Trail, Buffalo Grove. Right, exactly. Thank you. I said that at the beginning, but that's okay. Just a few points. And, you know, as I consider some of the businesses that I'm aware of in Buffalo Grove, I think of places like Zimmerman True Value, which has offered, in my mind, an excellent amount of service and a give and take. And I think about times when I've gone through there with plumbing problems and they've known exactly what to do because they've been a part of the community for a good long time and they've been able to provide a service for me in which, in return, I provide a business back to them. And I think about just down the way in the same strip mall, there's a little store called Nuts to You. There's a nice lady called Valentina that offers a lot of really wonderful things. And I think about another opportunity there where, see, I'm wandering again. I think about another opportunity there where people that are, you know, have a designated need for snacking on things can go to that store and they can find exactly what they need at that place. Again, there's a bit of a service and there's a bit of a give and take. One last one, just as an example, Rogan Shoes came into the old Dominic's facility and they filled a very embarrassing gap within our commercial fabric. They healed that gap. And so I think as a result, you know, most of the pair of shoes that I wear, if not from Rogan's, or the ones that our kids wear are also from Rogan's. I'm getting to a point, please. But as I think of that, I think of a give and take, and I think you'll find that you may smile in a moment, Lisa, as I get to my point. But as I think of an enterprise like Intertrack Partners, I hesitate to call it a business because I think of it more as an enterprise. I think of an opportunity where there's not much of a give and take being proposed there. In the initial stated, you know, the initial stated part where they're reporting that they're going to come in and take $15 million from our community. Obviously, that's not all from Buffalo Grove residents. But when I think of that, I'm left thinking about the businesses that I know that offer a give and a take in an exchange of goods. And I'm left to kind of question, on the other hand, where's the give back to the community with Intertrack Partners? I fail to see it. I don't feel that we've really found a designated need for the facility. So I would ask, and I appreciate, you know, Trustee Trilling and President Hartstein, I appreciate the opportunities that you've had to try and clarify these things. My requests are that as we go forward, you understand just how the village residents feel about this matter, because I think you would find that if you polled Jeffrey Brimm, if I think you mentioned that you were potentially for it, you may find that in reality that you may be in the minority within the rest of the Buffalo Grove residents. If you could just allow me just one more moment. In this morning's Daily Herald, which my wife emailed to me just as sort of an update and a link, President Hartstein, you were quoted as saying, and it's not a direct quote, but you'll forgive me if it's paraphrased, said the public has been amply informed on the issue through public hearings and several newspaper articles. I haven't found that to be the case. I did a little bit of polling last night. This is 1 hour's worth of work, pretty much. I went and I talked to several of my neighbors, and as we go forward, there's actually 48 signatures on this that I got within the space of an hour of work, and that includes the time actually to print this and just chat up with a few of my neighbors that were out on a beautiful evening last night. There's 48 people on here that really are opposed to it, and so I would just ask that as you go forward, you go forward with the mindset and the understanding that whatever you need to do to please write this ordinance, if it means that you're writing it to that degree, or if it means that you're writing it in such a specific manner that it can never occur in Buffalo Grove, I know that there's a number of Buffalo Grove residents, and again, I can't speak for everybody in this room, but I can speak for people that are completely outside of the neighborhood that's affected. I wanted to note that as well. I know there's a number of people here who this may be very, very close to their heart because they live within that radius. I don't know if it's 500 yards or 500 feet, but these are all people that live just south of Lake Cook Road around the Mohawk Trail area, and this is just one little street on one little neighborhood, and I got these names within an hour. And so I would just ask that as you go forward with the charge to steer the government in the way that the people would want it to be, that you please keep these things in mind and please vote against whatever measure. However you have to write it, please write it so that it can't happen in Buffalo Grove. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Dunn. I live at 1994 Sheridan Court. First, I'd like to offer my congratulations to the two newly elected trustees, as well as re-elected trustee Brimm, and to those trustees that did not stand for election this time, but for all of your hard work, and I know that all of you will continue to do your best and serve the people of Buffalo Grove. I am here tonight to speak to you, to give you my opinion at this public hearing. And just so happened, first of all, let me explain that I have served on the Village Zoning Board of Appeals, and prior to that on the Plan Commission for approximately 10 years. I've lived in Buffalo Grove for 11 years. I am an attorney in private practice, and part of my undergraduate studies as well as law school included urban planning, land use, and zoning law. I did work for the Lake County Planning Department as well as the Civil Division in the Lake County State's Attorney's Office, particularly working on a zoning case. But what I found that was timely tonight, I'm also the mother of 2 grade school children, and my 3rd grade daughter just happened to, in the last few weeks, to write an exposition for a 3rd grader about explaining why your town is such a wonderful place to live. And I'm going to read to you a few of the sentences that she wrote because I think it sums up Buffalo Grove pretty well as far as why I chose to live in Buffalo Grove and why I assume that the other people in this room, as well as many of our other residents, choose to live in Buffalo Grove. Our town is a wonderful place. We have many parks and a few pools, a lot of baseball fields and basketball courts, tennis and soccer fields. We also have many strip malls, gas stations, grocery stores, and other stores, which she names, but I don't need to name. Each have almost everything from clothes to food to games to school supplies to furniture to sports equipment. We also have wonderful schools and churches and synagogues. When I read this, I don't find anywhere in here where she could insert an off-track betting. It just doesn't quite fit. So, as you're looking at this ordinance that has been proposed, it's not compatible with the current business uses or perhaps even contemplated business uses. It's not compatible with residential uses, and it's not compatible with leisure uses or recreation or parks. So I'd urge you not to approve this proposed ordinance. And off-track betting, gambling, whatever you want to call it, whatever term you want to use, it does have negative stigmas attached to it, and that's not something that we want to bring to Buffalo Grove. Thank you.
Well, good evening. First, I want to wish this board a good 2 to 4 year period as you now start with your makeup. Congratulations to those of you that were elected. As regarding the explanation that President Hartstein gave earlier as to why it is important that this particular amendment be approved, in other words, to protect the village from off-track betting that might be able to go in without it, if that is the only reason that you're voting for this ordinance, I suggest that that is wrong. The reason being, off-track betting is governed by the Illinois State Racing Board. They will only approve a license for off-track betting conditioned upon the village or municipality approving the appointment. If we don't vote to approve an appointment, they cannot get a license. They could get a license approved conditionally, but they cannot get the license without our approval. So this ordinance, based on your explanation, is not valid unless the true reason is to lay the foundation to approve off-track betting. Now, that being said, I'd like to address a few other things that were said earlier as regarding to the representations as to why tonight, as to whether or not the racing board would be meeting. The racing board meets the second Tuesday of every month. If there is an application for a license the Friday before, 2 Fridays before the meeting, there's a meeting. Unless, of course, for some reason they've proposed to cancel it. I knew that there's a meeting in June, and for Intertrack for the discussion to come up that Intertrack has suggested that there might not have been a meeting in June, I don't know where they're coming from. It's the second Tuesday of every month. All right, that being said, I did prepare a statement that I would like to read. Oh, before I get into that, the idea that the proposal is only supposed to be to discuss whether or not, or the proposals to discuss a way to protect us from off-track betting coming in, that's not the way that the Plan Commission handled it. For those of you who were at the Plan Commission meeting, I believe you'll back me up by this, the Plan Commission handled it as if this was a proposal as to whether or not we should be allowing off-track betting, and that there was a second proposal which will be discussed at a later date. At the start of the first Plan Commission's public hearing to determine if a recommendation would be made for a special use off-track betting in area zone B3, it was asked if there were any emails sent to the village on the subject, and it was reported that there were, and I believe that the commissioners were told that they had copies provided to them. There was no mention, though, made to the commissioners about the eloquently written guest editorial in the Pioneer Press by Greg Schomburg, who spoke, letting them know about a village member's opposition to bringing off-track betting into the village. At the close of the public hearing, it was stated by the chairman of the Plan Commission that all of the opposition, except for one person, was from within the subdivision, the Columbian Garden subdivision, and therefore he made the conclusion that because there was no other opposition from outside the subdivision, that the village must be in favor of it. So far, I believe I'm the only one from the Columbian Garden subdivision who's come up here to speak. So that's something else that needs to be taken into consideration. I suppose that I thought our Plan Commission would be doing a bit more fact-finding than they did. I thought for certain that they would be slow and deliberate, but I did forget that they had already heard some of the arguments that were before them previously when off-track betting was considered in past years. The Commission drew that assumption, like I said earlier, that if nobody objected, then there must be no opposition. They never considered the fact that the reason people weren't there to object is, other than those who had received the specific notice, the village residents just didn't know about it. Yes, there were opportunities to know about it. If you read the Daily Herald, it's posted. If you were paying attention to the March 23rd meeting, you knew that it was going to be referred to the Plan Commission. I did my best to get out people from my neighborhood, and we had, according to the reports from the Pioneer Press, between 30 to 50 people between 2 nights. I understand Adams Rib did their best to get people out. They got 3 of their customers out here. It's been suggested by our village president in an interview with the Daily Herald that the public has been amply informed on the issue through public hearings and several newspaper articles. I want to make something clear. There's been only one public hearing on this particular issue, and that was held on April 15th. As suggested by Trustee Stone, there needed to be greater awareness of this issue. Our elected village officials went to great lengths to make sure that the public knew of and came out to support the referendum for the proposed Route 53 extension, something that is years away from providing any effective relief for our residents, but stayed quiet about the proposal to change the face of Buffalo Grove by permitting off-track betting in the village. This is a matter that can affect everybody in the immediate future. As I understand it, once a license is given to a facility, they can go into business the next day. Okay? We did not have a referendum to measure public opinion on the matter, and the more that people are finding about it now, the more that they're coming forward to oppose the proposal. I've read the comments in the Daily Herald from Trustee Brimm about governing by referendum, and Trustee Brimm asks, if we go to referendum for this, are we going to go to referendum when we build a public works department building? Trustee Brimm knows that this is much bigger than whether we should put on an addition on a building or whether we should grant a liquor license. This is a fundamental change in the village of Buffalo Grove. I keep asking myself, why, when the communities around us are turning down gambling as a way to generate revenue, why are we looking to gambling? Is there some bigger picture that I'm missing? It's plain and simple, it's the money. Now, I'm not going to belabor the point that Trustee Sussman made, but basically, we've started off with a proposal that suggested that the village would be receiving about $150,000 in revenue from the gambling, and now we're down to, by a publication that's put out by Intertrack themselves, an estimate that Buffalo Grove will be more in the $70,000 to $100,000 amount. My question is $70,000 to $100,000 worth changing the face of Buffalo Grove? I don't think so. As a candidate for village trustee, I thought for certain that this could have been made an issue. Since information was published in mid-March, I didn't have enough information back then to talk about this responsibly, and therefore felt it best to keep an open mind until I heard more. After hearing the president of Intertrack tell residents that people betting in front of children at an OTB was nothing different from buying a lottery ticket in front of them, or after hearing him tell another resident that holding a special event at an OTB was nothing different than a bingo night at a church, my mind was made up. If this was the mentality that was being used to bring off-track betting into Buffalo Grove, then I want no part of it. The state of Illinois does not permit this type of establishment within 500 feet of a house of worship. Maybe our ordinance should include a provision, if approved, that would not permit this type of establishment within 500 feet of a residential area or a park district property. Why should the rights of individuals be any less important than those of a house of worship? It comes down to this: what is our identity? How do we define ourselves as residents of Buffalo Grove? Do we really want off-track betting, an off-track betting facility in the village, especially for an unknown rate of return? I've heard no compelling reasons to permit this entity to be added to our landscape. I ask that you listen to the voices of the people that are here tonight, the residents that are here tonight, and do what's right for Buffalo Grove. Please vote no for off-track betting.
Hi, my name is Sue Ripp, and I live at 15 East Chevy Chase Drive in Buffalo Grove. I want to start out by saying that I was at the Planning Committee, both of the meetings, and I'm not a lawyer. I don't have that kind of terminology, but I have to say that my understanding of that, there was two issues before the Planning Committee. One was, should we change the ordinance? And the other one was, should we allow this off-track betting facility at this particular location? Those two things came hand in hand. And I think the point's been made that there's really, whereas I understand you want to be able to control if an off-track betting facility should be established, really what's happening here is, yes, we are going to have off-track betting, so let's control it. And that's kind of not the way it should be. I think it would be a much fairer thing to say, do we want gambling in Buffalo Grove? And if that's the case, if we want to put that before the people, let the people have their say. Do they want it or not? I think it is true, and I agree that if it had been more adequately publicized, that many more people would have been here tonight even. And I think that given some time, I think you'd have a fair representation of what the people of Buffalo Grove are thinking about this matter. Because I was at the Planning Commission, I did have an opportunity to listen to Intertrack give their presentation. And I just want to point out one thing that gentleman did say. He mentioned that the people who would be placing the bets would be there as a benefit to the facility, whatever facility it's going to be in, and it would not be involved in like eating times or peak restaurant times. And he mentioned specifically that, you know, their clients could be there 5 hours looking at a race, you know, all the multiple races, and you have to ask yourself, what are they drinking when they're there? So after 5 hours without food or minimal snacks, then you have these people leaving that facility, wherever it is. I know how alcohol affects me. I have to think that it would affect other people. They're going out driving, they're driving on our streets. I don't think this is the type of thing that we want to have within our village limits. I want to say also that I grew up in Deerfield. My first home away from home, except for college, was Highland Park. It's part of my job. I drive extensively on the North Shore. I'm very familiar with everything from Lake Forest to Chicago, out to Barrington, Palatine. I see all these communities. I see their stature. I see their pride. I see Niles as I drive through it every day, which is where another Intertrack facility is. I think with Buffalo Grove being close, well, not close, neighboring to Lincolnshire, Deerfield, Northbrook, I think it's reasonable to say we're an extension of the North Shore. And that conveys a type of status, a type of idea, North Shore, the North Shore of Chicago. Off-track betting is not compatible with that. And I do want to say I was very struck, Mr. Brimm, by your comments saying that this is a place where we live and we work and we raise our family. And I don't see where off-track betting is compatible with that. That's just my thoughts.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Alan Rikas. I live at 27 Chevy Chase Drive. I'm one of the residents that we're talking about here. We were very surprised, I guess about a month and a half ago, to get this letter telling us about this proposal. We talked to our neighbors. Nobody had heard anything about this. We had a campaign going for trustees. It wasn't an issue. I have the campaign literature here for all the candidates. Nobody mentioned it. Now, the only person who did was Andy Stein. He's about 3 houses down from me, so I talked to Andy, and he brought it up. But it did not become an issue in the election. And I find that to be amazing, how something this important to a community was ignored. Now, people have talked here about all the reasons why they're opposed to the gambling. I don't want to be repetitive. I agree with everything that's been said so far. So I'm going to make a very hard cost analysis type statement. I spoke to 6 realtors in the Buffalo Grove area and 2 more outside. I asked each one of these realtors, would there be an economic impact on my home? I'm about 350 feet away from this place. I asked each one of them. Every single one said, yes, there would be an economic impact on your home. I said, how about this for an example? I said, what if my home's for sale and a home a mile and a half down the road, someplace else, identical homes. Everything is the same. Price is the same, you know, the number of bedrooms, the whole thing. I said, it's a Sunday afternoon. People are coming out looking to buy a house. Their realtors are coming around in the cars. I said, they look at my home, they like it. They look at the home down there, they like it. They come back to mine. And then they see, well, what's that happening down the street? We can see it right from here. It's a Sunday afternoon. It's a big racing day. There's about 50 guys standing outside, and they're all smoking, they're all drinking on the inside, having a great time. So people look at that and say, well, that's the off-track betting facility, that, you know, that's what goes on here, and we're sorry. Which house are they going to buy? I asked them. They said, well, it won't be yours. I said, well, what could I do to try and sell my house? He said, well, I guess you just lower your price. I don't know, $10,000, $20,000, lower it. Okay, there's 90 private residences right now in Columbia Garden subdivision. Multiply, let's say $10,000 economic impact. That's a $900,000 negative impact on our property values. And this doesn't count the commercial property owners, Hamilton Partners and some of the others, who talked at the Planning Commission meeting. It doesn't count their negative impact. They were opposed to this. So then what I'm hearing is we're talking about possibly gaining $70,000 in revenue for the village, which is something like 0.1% of the annual village budget. And we're gonna put this kind of economic impact on my community? In real estate times the way it is right now, it's hard enough to sell your home. Do I need this down the street from my house? Not to mention, it's a Wheeling Park district right across the street. So it's almost incredulous that people came in here and are offering to put this off-track betting facility in a failed restaurant. I'm sorry, it's a failed restaurant. Go Google it. Right now, crank up your computer back there, Google it. You'll see what they say about it. So I don't want to go on and on about this issue, but as I said, I went through the campaign literature, and I want to thank Lisa Stone and Beverly Sussman for being totally consistent with what you said in your literature. I want to thank you for it, and you've really added some spirit to this board. And Mr. Brimm, you said you wanted transparency in government, you wanted more communication with residents. I don't understand why you want this off-track gambling. As I said, we have 90 to 100 homes in my subdivision. We have that new apartment house. There's probably 1,000 people back there. We're residents. We don't want this. We don't need it in Buffalo Grove. And as a retired federal worker, let me tell you right now, there is plenty of stimulus money from Department of Energy and every other agency in the world. Why don't we pursue that? Why don't we pursue that? There's money to be gained. We don't need $70,000 for that. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Mark Levin, 914 Hobson Drive in Buffalo Grove. And I just have a couple comments. One, as far as the village was aware of this. I read the Daily Herald for 9 years, read it daily. I think I missed 10 days in the past in all those years. I have never seen anything. I'm part of BGRA, been a manager for the past 4 years, managed about 7 or 8 teams around how many families that is and all the other families that you play against and with. And nobody talks about that, never heard anything about it. I get the emails from the village, never saw anything about that, so I found that I don't think that's accurate to say that the village is aware of this. Also, I would say I hope that the village, if it needs to, is doing this to stop it, not to find ways to control it, to stop it. We do not need gambling. I come from a family that has somebody as an addict, not a gambling addict, although that could be one of his issues potentially, but nobody needs that in their families around here. Hopefully it's, God forbid, it's somewhere else, but we certainly don't need to bring it into our community. I would also point out some things I find kind of odd. We're a village where we're like, what, the #1 DUI enforcement in the state of Illinois or the United States. Why would we then allow gambling into our community, which is also going to bring rise to more DUIs? I would also point out, I remember many years ago, and I forget if it's Walmart or Target, but the statement in the Daily Herald by the village was that they did not want the Walmart or Target because of the crime or the additional police staff that they would have to hire. So I didn't even know what that revenue is, and I didn't know how much this was, but after hearing the numbers, I mean, turn that down and look at this. That's crazy. And the last thing I'll add is when I picked up my 14-year-old son today from Stevenson, and I mentioned to him where I was going and why, his comment was, why? Why would they consider that? And that's from a 14-year-old. So I implore you, I don't know if today is the day, but please do not consider it. It's not necessary, especially for the dollars. then we should have taken Walmart or Target, but why this?
Just for the record, so nobody misunderstands, Walmart and Target are in the village of Wheeling, and we did not have the opportunity to turn them down, and I guarantee we wouldn't have turned them down. I doubt very much we would have. No, that's not correct. That's not correct. We had no choice. It's not in our village. But that's just so no one, it's a misunderstanding on that issue, because that happens to be Wheeling, and we couldn't have gotten it if we wanted it. But that's just for the record. Go ahead.
I'm Susan Glazer, 302 Chateau Drive in Buffalo Grove. First, I want to thank the board for your time and investment to trying to raise more money for our village. My plea is that you please find somewhere else for this I'll give it $150,000. You've got 3 new members entering the board now. You've got 3 people who ran against who are willing and dedicated and wanting to work to help our community. Perhaps we could possibly find another way to raise that money. And I know in these times that's rhetoric, because it's hard to find the money right now. But I would just say, please vote against this ordinance for tonight, because as much work as you've done and invested in time and energy into putting this together, I just beg you to find another way to raise the money. The second is, if I understand it right, and maybe I don't, Elliot, you're saying that if we don't pass this zoning ordinance tonight, what do you call it?
Text amendment.
A text amendment. If we don't pass it, then they can put the gambling in anyway.
No, I didn't. I know they couldn't. I didn't say they could, because we would have to let them. Okay. The village still has to allow them to do it. All I'm just saying is that an argument could be made by someone under the language of our zoning ordinances. This strengthens our zoning ordinance, allows us to impose conditions similar to what Trustee Trilling pointed out with regard to adult entertainment or what we did with the banking and so forth. It allows us to impose conditions. I was just simply explaining what a special use is, and that's what I was trying to clarify.
So I'm urging you to vote against the text amendment, because I may not understand it right, but it appears, or it seems to me, that this business cannot put gambling in on Milwaukee Avenue if we don't even give them this text amendment. And I might be wrong on that. So if I'm wrong, then I would just go back to my original plea, which is please vote against this text amendment and allowing gambling. I know clearly several of you are in favor of the gambling. I would say it seems to me we can find a better way to bring this money into Buffalo Grove. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Steve LaFar, 2038 Jordan Terrace. And for full disclosure, I'm on the District 102 school board, but I am here as a resident of Buffalo Grove, not as a member of the district. We actually follow rules about who speaks on behalf of the board. The proposal or amendment ordinance is a precursor to allowing gambling. It is not a necessity. You can rule to do nothing when it comes before you. There's no reason to introduce this. And so the motion before you, which is what we're really here all talking about, a proposal which hasn't even been brought to you yet, which is to allow it, should be voted against in the negative. The other point, I spend my career advising people in enterprise risk management, and I've never seen such a silly proposal see the light of day in a village of $60 million. On a reputation risk, a financial risk, a safety risk, name the risk, $70,000 to $150,000, I find it hard to believe is really worth the myriad risks, including the downstream risk of if that comes in and other businesses look at that area and say, we're not coming in next to off-track betting, what's the alternative impact you're going to have on other businesses that may want to come into that part of the community? And that concerns me greatly. I value the contribution you all make. I sit in a thankless job on the school board as well, and it's very difficult to make these decisions sometimes for the greater good. I live clear on the other side of town. This has no impact on me day to day. Mr. Stein brought it to my attention, and it was the first we'd heard of it. I'm pretty well informed, given what I do for the community as well. The rules got a little out of control tonight. You learned them, but I love your passion. It's fantastic. The rules are a little hard to follow. You'll screw them up the first couple months. Thank you.
I'm Bob Browning. I live at 18 Linden Avenue in Buffalo Grove, and it is in the Chevy Chase Triangle. I've attended the Planning Commission meetings, and there's a lot of misconceptions, trust me. I'd like to say congratulations to Ms. Suskin and Ms. Stone. We respect you, we voted for you, and quite frankly, we're disappointed in the reception that you've received tonight from some of the senior trustees. You were trying to represent the people that voted for you, and you have our respect and our trust. This amendment to me, and I'm not a lawyer, I admit that, but it looks like a Trojan horse. We have kept gambling out of the city for how many years now? How long has Buffalo Grove been a village? 50 years, okay? And the amendment was not necessary. We haven't brought undesirable businesses in. This amendment to me, like I said, looks like a Trojan horse. It's giving another in to bring gambling in to those few people who want it. When we came to the last planning board, it was about 50 of us from the area near that restaurant. And there wasn't anybody else from the city of Buffalo Grove here. And the assistant city manager said, well, she'd only received a couple of complaints. You know why? Nobody knew about it. They know about it today when they read it in the paper. I have to tell you something. Board of Trustees better be prepared for a standing room only crowd when you vote on OTB, because there are petitions floating started today. We're going to fill this room with opposition. You know, this is the will of the people. The village of Buffalo Grove, we were just incorporated in a few years ago. We're proud to be a part of Buffalo Grove. There is nothing about OTB that enhances the image of Buffalo Grove. Thank you.
My name is Ellen Kodroff. I live at 2937 Bayberry Drive in Buffalo Grove. I've lived in Buffalo Grove for 25 years. I don't think that you could keep a secret in Buffalo Grove for anything in the world. Your next door neighbor sprains his ankle. All of Buffalo Grove knows. It's in every paper. The matter that you kept this a secret from all of us, and I know a lot of people in Buffalo Grove, I want to know how you did it, because there are many people who live in Buffalo Grove that have tragedies in their house that don't want anyone to know. It goes out to everybody. And I just have one more thing to say. I started a foundation in Buffalo Grove 5 years ago for my daughter who has an illness to raise money for research. In 5 years, we found a way in Buffalo Grove to donate $1.5 million to research. If we could do that, you could surely raise more than $100,000 in a year just with our residents to find money in Buffalo Grove rather than to ruin our community that we love for our children to live in. And I'm sorry that Buffalo Grove would turn into this, so that's all I have to say.
Trustee Stone?
Yes. Okay, I'd just like to make one more comment to make sure I can get this out there. Regarding who is voting for this, I just want to be very clear about this. The reason that they put it back on, I guess, whatever agenda that it supposedly never came off of, whatever that all meant. But I have an email from Trustee Brimm talking about the Triple Crown, and this was the reason that we needed to get it on quick, because they wanted to, I guess, to get the third leg or whatever part of the Triple Crown is. And I'm a race truck lover, by the way. But so please don't act like there wasn't a reason to actually get the tax amendment passed for a reason to get this into Adams Ribs. I have the email. I have the absolute email, so please don't say that that's not so. Secondly, I'd like to say that the reason that it was honored that they were going to allow it for May 18th is because they switched it back and put it back on tonight because Trustee Jeff Berman will not be here May 18th. You'll see that that's true. And they needed to have the a corporate vote, which is 5 votes instead of 4. If he weren't there, you wouldn't have the 5. That's why it's back tonight. The third reason, so if I'm saying something untrue, by all means afterwards tell me, because I have all the information absolute on this. And then the third thing that I want to say is that since you 5 are the one that want to pass this so badly, that it was not put on any vehicle of communication at all, as you can see, there is not one person that stood up in favor of it. Can you please tell me why you would not table this tonight? Why you wouldn't just, if you don't want to just throw it out altogether, I think we'd all be in favor of that, but instead bring it to the whole community. Get one person up here that is actually going to be in favor of it, because how could you not table this when you have not one resident? They're all here in outrage, as you feel, as you can tell. And the only people that you notified, which I actually have a clarification today if you guys are all ready for this, I thought they notified 130 homes. No. They notified 79 homes in 2 apartment buildings, but only the people that are the management of the apartment buildings, not even the individual residents in the buildings that would be voting. So all I could say is, please do, let's vote and let's table this, because I think you hear what the residents are saying. They want to know more. Okay? Thank you.
Trustee Sussman.
I attended the Plan Commission meetings, and I was very surprised, and maybe someone could explain this to me, when someone in the audience got up and spoke at the microphone, and the first thing they said was, "My name is so-and-so, I do not live in Buffalo Grove." At that point, why wasn't that person said, "Thank you very much for coming to the meeting. We appreciate your attendance. We do not want to hear what you have to say since this is an issue for Buffalo Grove"?
Is there any, Trustee Stone?
Just for clarity, so that we can all get real on this board, that's what I'm hoping from now on, so I hope you guys get used to it. Jeff, Trustee Berman, you've got expression about this. Could we all just say how we're feeling about this whole issue? Because I think it would be nice to have clarification, because you seem so abashed by all of this. Do you hear that the residents don't want it? Do you notice? Do you see it? Do you feel it? That they feel that they have not been told. I just wonder, can we all acknowledge that, so that we all feel like a community, that we all understand each other? And you too, Janet, because I know you're expressing yourself. Let's all express ourselves with this, because everyone feels so disconnected. We need to be connected. You need to have told the community. This is a chance to start today. You talk about starting fresh, Elliot, and let's put everything behind us. I mean, I've been dodging you guys for months now, all right? Let's start fresh today, but let's respond to the community in a healthy way, and let's hear what they say. If you vote not to table it, my gosh, how are you going to sleep at night tonight? That's all I want to say. Thank you. And I'll get used to the rules in just a couple months.
Trustee Berman.
Well, I certainly hope you get used to the rules a little sooner than that, because it'll certainly make things go more smoothly. And, well, smoothly can be defined in a number of ways, but ultimately what it involves is the right process and the right way we go about doing things. Let's talk about a couple of issues, and then I will go on and I will make some comments. On March 6th, a Friday, village staff met with Intertrack Partners, the OTB. On that very same day that they received a proposal from the OTB, Charles Berman published an article entitled "Buffalo Grove Considers Off-Track Betting," the very same day the meeting occurred here in Buffalo Grove. To suggest that there wasn't coverage, to suggest that this was somehow hidden from view, is simply not accurate. Then, the very next day, or on Monday, March 9th, I received an email from Mr. Schomburg, who spoke very eloquently and is a very nice gentleman, but we exchanged emails that day. He certainly was aware of it, and he then went on to write a very nice, well-written editorial that appeared in the Countryside, I believe, a week later. This is not something that's been under the rug. It's not something that's been hidden from view. It's not something that suddenly comes out of the woodwork. The fact is that this has been covered in the press. It has been a matter of public record. It has been a matter of public hearing. And while I appreciate the fact that not everybody has heard about it, and certainly that is an issue that we will address in a constructive manner going forward, the fact is that is what occurred. And when you talk about let's get real and let's have facts, Lisa, let's really have facts. Let's not kind of use half the facts and not the other half of the facts. And I'm perfectly okay with that. And I'm perfectly okay with a healthy discourse, and we certainly will have that. Hopefully we will all come to a common ground over 99% of the issues which are not matters of contention, and we'll deal with the ones that are of contention in a manner that works for all of us and works for the community and the community's best interest. I want to thank everybody who came out tonight. I think it's helpful. I think your voices are being heard. I think that we have a lot of people in this community and a lot of varying degrees of perspective and a lot of opinions. And I've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of people over the last couple of weeks, and I've posed the question directly to them. And I think that by and large, people are somewhat indifferent to the question of the OTB. And you might say, now, that's right.
Please let him finish.
And,
you can
folks,
speak again, don't worry.
Yes, we have a number of people here in the room tonight, and you've certainly come out and you've certainly expressed an opinion. And I counted 14 speakers, 15 speakers this evening. And I know that there are others of you out there. There are 45,000 residents of this community.
You've noticed. I'm glad today. I'm frustrated, but I'll wait my turn.
I think we're all frustrated by the way this evening has gone by. And I think we're all frustrated by the lack of civility that's been expressed. You know, it's interesting to impose labels, and it's interesting to hear how individuals will spin an issue to inspire passion and inspire concern. I asked a question earlier of the village attorney because I wanted an answer, because Lisa had asked it and it wasn't answered, which is when Elliot spoke earlier at the beginning of the meeting and he explained what the purpose and intent and the effect of the ordinance that's proposed to us tonight, whether from a legal perspective that he was accurate, that he was correct, and if that held up under scrutiny from the professionals that we hire to provide, we as a board, legal advice and to guide us and guide our deliberations. And I believe the answer was yes. And while, with due respect, our new colleagues take issue, or one of our new colleagues takes issue with that interpretation, I believe that the village attorney is the person who both drafted it and can express the intent behind the drafting of the ordinance and is in a position to opine on its impact. I had prepared a number of comments earlier today, and I'll go through some of them quickly. You know, it was interesting in the Chicago Sun-Times today. Richard Roper recounts spending Saturday afternoon watching the Derby with a crowd at an off-track betting facility in Chicago. He mentioned among the crowd was such notables as the Cubs manager, Lou Piniella. The attendance at Churchill Downs on Saturday was over 150,000 people, and more than 14.3 million people watched the Derby on Saturday. Now, I'm familiar with the facility where Richard Roper watched the Derby. I had lunch there a couple of months ago while waiting for my daughter, who was attending a meeting across the street. The ambience and decor resembled a chain pub and burger joint. Bennigan's or Houlihan's comes to mind. The crowd in attendance could have been the same that you'd see at any one of those joints. According to the Illinois Department of Agriculture website, there are no fewer than 30 off-track betting facilities operating in Illinois. 4 are located in Chicago. The remainder are spread throughout the suburbs and the rest of the state. Notable suburban locations include Oak Brook Terrace, Elk Grove Village, Homewood, Niles, and Wakanda. According to the Chicago Tribune, there are 10 casinos within 100 miles of downtown Chicago, and the legislators voted to bring another one to nearby Des Plaines. The state has 5 horse race tracks, including one just a few minutes' drive from where we're sitting right now tonight in Arlington Heights. Nearby Wisconsin offers multiple venues for racing as well. And according to the Department of Agriculture, horse racing benefits Illinois by creating $1.4 billion in annual economic impact, sustaining 37,000 jobs, and generating $80 million in yearly revenue for the state and local governments. Legalized gambling in general and horse race pari-mutuel wagering specifically are nearly ubiquitous at this point, as common as corner convenience stores where millions are wagered every week on the Illinois State Lottery. Although I do not believe I've ever placed a bet at an OTB, but like Trustee Stone, see, we've already found common ground. I've been to the track. I enjoy going to the track, and I've placed bets at Arlington Park and one of the other tracks over the years. I visited several of the OTBs in Chicago and in other areas in the past, and I even stopped in one located in downtown Philadelphia, in the heart of their financial district, last week while I was on a business trip. If you've never been in one, you might think an OTB resembles some sleazy parlor portrayed in the movie The Sting. They don't. They're not seething, smoke-filled, reprobated-laden dens of iniquity and vice. The OTBs I've visited have been surprisingly understated, largely unobtrusive, more suggestive of the ubiquitous sports bar or spicy chicken wing joint. They're pretty innocuous venues filled with pretty ordinary people, unworthy of evoking mass hysteria reminiscent of Professor Harold Hill and his hyperbolic admonition about trouble in River City. Even the betting facilities themselves at the OTBs are often strangely inconspicuous and seem more closely equivalent to a lotto machine than a sports book or a casino. Now, I offer that for background, and I offer that to give some perspective to some of our friends who may not have had an opportunity to visit one of these facilities. That's not to say that I've made up my mind about what we should do. The question presented to us tonight is not whether the specific proposed OTB will be granted zoning approval to operate at Adams Ribs. Although long ago scheduled to be heard tonight as well, that question was deferred to a later meeting as requested by our newest members. The fact is, that question doesn't need to be decided tonight, won't be decided tonight. They've received the requested deferral. The ultimate issue will be decided at another meeting. The only question before us tonight is whether to amend the zoning ordinance to establish a greater level of authority to condition and regulate the actual use. In the case of the ordinance presented tonight, it adds an even greater than usual number of conditions that would have to be met before such a use could be approved. And as I noted a moment ago, final approval of the specific OTB approval is not to be assumed, and it's not assured. There are several issues related to site management and use impact that arose in the Plan Commission process that I believe must be addressed adequately in the final presentation and form of the ordinance presented to the board, most chiefly parking and special event management. Those concerns and issues are not inherent to the nature of the specific OTB use, but more generally to any food service and entertainment venue, any bar or restaurant that existed in that location or along Milwaukee Avenue would present the same manner of challenges, the same kinds of challenges. If you open a sports bar, if you put a Champs there or something along those lines, you could find you would face the same issues, the same difficulties, and the same people sitting there for 4 or 5 hours to watch a sporting event and having a beer and going out on Milwaukee Avenue. The nature of the OTB doesn't inherently change the impact of the use. I share the concerns that have been raised by the neighbors, and I certainly would not support final approval of the specific proposal unless and until they're satisfactorily resolved. But don't misunderstand me, since everyone wanted a broad declaration. I'm not inherently opposed to the notion of an OTB, but it must be an OTB that's properly planned, properly conditioned, properly presented. At this point, that information is not before us, and that we're not in a position to address that question. That could have been here, it was deferred. I also want to note that it's important to remember that we're not pioneers regarding the OTB use. We would not be the first or even the 30th location where an OTB is conceptually permitted. Well-regarded in high-end communities such as our neighbor Arlington Heights, which also has the track itself, and even the likes of Oak Brook, a Tony high-end community, have long embraced the use and the revenue stream that results. And so I ask you, when you think of Oak Brook, what do you think of? You think of Oak Brook Center, you think of Butler Country Club, you think of large homes and wide manicured lawns. The fact that the OTB exists there does not inherently color the view of that area.
It's in Oak Brook Terrace, by the way.
Yeah, different, much different, different. You need to know that, different.
It is.
Please let our speaker finish, please.
And so I think the question remains an open one, and one that needs to be addressed with specific and practical issues related to the concerns raised by the neighbors. And with due respect to the few whose question is one of morality, and with appropriate appreciation for your perspective, I would submit we should not view the use itself, which is legal and is regulated under state law, is supported by the legislature, and is promoted daily by print and electronic media, as so inherently offensive or toxic that it cannot be considered or listed among possible uses for which a special use might be granted under our zoning ordinances, under appropriate guidelines, conditions, and circumstances. That's why I think that it is appropriate to hear this ordinance tonight. I think it's appropriate to make the decision tonight on the question of the text amendment. The question of the ultimate imposition of the use is one that will be addressed at a later date. Thank you.
Trustee Stone.
Okay. The first thing I want to say is you speak to notification. And once again, I want to say it again, although it's redundant, but I want to make it really, really clear. Yes, it was in the Herald, and thank you, the Herald, and thank you, Countryside, because if we didn't have you, it would not have been known. The vehicles that you could have used, but you chose not to, the weekly e-news, we all get it, and it informs us of everything. The Village News Magazine, just off the press the other day. The Daily Blotter. I don't know, really, let's not even talk about it anymore, because we all know the reality of that, so it's silly. So let's not keep going over that part. We did not communicate to the people on that point. Secondly, I want to say that action speaks louder than words. So you can say, you know, what this is about. We all know what this is about. It's very, very clear. So really, it's insulting to the intelligence of our community. We all know what we're doing, the tax amendment, what it means, and obviously, if you really didn't want the gambling or the off-track betting, you certainly wouldn't be providing the tax amendment. So it's insulting to me, and I think it is to the community as well. So could we stop belaboring that point as well? If you really are not wanting off-track betting, then you wouldn't be making the text amendment for it tonight. And let me remind you that it was all going to be on tonight. It was all going to be on tonight, but for Bev and I protesting the whole issue, so they divided it up. So we were going to be voting tonight on all of it, and we were going to be putting in Adam's ribs that they're talking about, that they'd be very careful of where to put it, in a place that last month, I think on April 17th through 19th, Gita and Bill, you could probably tell me the specifics, sting operation because they were selling alcohol to underage minors. This is who this board was wanting to put it in their hands. Now that bothers me very much. I have children in the community, and I don't understand why, of all places, you don't grant, let's say, child care to someone that has had any type of offense with children, right? I don't think you give a place that sells, that has gambling, you don't give a gambling license to someone that is selling alcohol to minors. Their judgment right there is telling you something. But you guys wanted to do that, and you wanted to do it tonight. So stop saying it isn't so. I've been dealing with for months with everything that isn't so. I know it's so, and we all know it's so. And let me say one more thing. And I know I'm shocking you all, but I'm just saying it like it is, which was why no one wanted me here to begin with. And I just want to say that if you pass this, Oak Brook Terrace is clarification, thank you to the audience. Oak Brook Terrace is so much different than Oak Brook. Have you been to Oak Brook recently, Trustee Berman? Well, wait, I don't actually want an answer, it's actually rhetorical. Oak Brook Terrace is corporate. It's majority corporate, and there's not many residential homes. So once you find that out, you probably will feel on the same side of the issue that I do. The community really does not want this. They're telling you loud and clear. And if you don't table this tonight, you are basically saying to the community, I don't care what you say, I didn't bother to inform you of it, and now that you've even come out in numbers, and you've counted, that's good that you're counting all the numbers, those are just the people that are comfortable to get up to public speak. It's the greatest anxiety for most people for public speaking, so thank you all for doing so. Do you need 45,000 to come and tell you? Because you don't even have one here telling us that they want it. Why is that you five are the only ones that want it? Everyone in the community is saying, why do they want it so bad? And I've said, I don't know. Could you explain it? Because you don't have anyone here speaking to it that they want it. You've got everyone telling you that they don't want it, and you're going to sit here and talk about your legal jargon. Well, it's just tax amendment. I'm not an attorney, but I know what I'm hearing, and they do too. And everyone's watching, so the ones that had to go home and watch their kids and get back home, they're tuned in. They're tuned in. What did you tell me, Deanne, about this? We could have been watching this on 8 on 8, right? So 8 on 8. They're watching. I hope you table this and you actually respond to the community that elected you to represent them. Let's get that clear, to represent them. You needed to notify them. You needed to use the vehicles of communication. You did not. Not the Herald in the Countryside. All of the vehicles of communication, you did not put it in. That's outrageous to me. Outrageous. Please table this vote. And let's get it out on the vehicles of communication. Let the people have a chance to email you and really communicate. As Bev and I, for the past 48 hours, have been aggressively trying to query the community. You should have been doing this for months. And I think everyone has told you so. Please stop giving us any more discussion about it. It's insulting to me, and I think to everybody else.
Trustee Sussman.
I would be happy if we didn't table it, but if we received one more no vote. Let me tell you, I'm from New York originally. They have the Belmont Stakes there. My father was born in Louisville, Kentucky, where they have the Kentucky Derby. I go to the racetrack in Florida. I am not against betting on horses. I'm against gambling in the village of Buffalo Grove. There's a very big difference between enjoying races, liking it, enjoying it with other friends, and actually having it in your own village. I don't care if the country gets $50 billion from OTBs. I don't care if the state of Illinois gets $30 billion from OTB. The village of Buffalo Grove is being promised $70,000 for OTB. Are we willing to sell ourselves for $70,000 for this village? I think that's disgraceful.
Trustee Trolling.
My stomach is turning. I don't know.
Please, everybody, please be respectful to the speaker, please.
I've sat on the Plan Commission for the Village of Buffalo Grove for 7 years. 2 years prior that I sat on our Appearance Commission. I've been a trustee now for 7 years. I've served this village for 16 years. There are so many things that I want to say. There's so many things that I think are misconstrued or misunderstood. And the way that we're going about this is not consistent with the way that I like village government to operate. First and foremost, I'd like to say that I appreciate every comment that was made. Every single person here is serving the residents of Buffalo Grove. We are serving in the best way we know possible. And I think that is getting lost in the whole translation, number one. We're all here because of everybody here. And you put us here, and that's the reason. And the reason why I started serving as a trustee was prior to that, because I served on a plan commission, which was an appointed position. It was a place where I could contribute my talents and my ideas to a village that I think I could better. What's happened tonight is very unfortunate. Not unfortunate that the people here spoke. It's unfortunate the way that it was carried out. I don't like being lumped together with any group, perceived or unperceived, because I haven't made any vote to this point in time, nor have I made any comment, if you will, other than to explain what I believed was a question from a person who came and spoke. I merely answered the question as best I could as to what this was all about. I'm very confused right now because I have an attitude about what's happening, and that's not a good thing to have. I want to make a rational decision. I want to make a decision that serves the community as a whole. The communication that's been carried out throughout the village, I honestly believe that this communication was no different than any other communication that the village has conducted in the past regarding any other issue. It has not been hurried. It has not been held in secret. It has not been in any way privatized. Everything that I've been aware of has been published in some fashion. Has it gone on the direct phone calls as an emergency to every resident? The answer is no. It's not something that's appropriate, obviously, for that particular use. Well,
Press my button to talk.
I understand, but it's the actions. I try and control myself a little bit and
I
try.
gotta get used to the way you guys are. I'm used to just being real.
It's not you guys.
Let the speaker speak, please.
I'm sorry.
Let the speaker speak, please. Let the speaker speak. Mr. Trustee Trilling has the floor. I would hope that we all have respect. I mean, it's not a big request. I mean, really, as much as you want to speak, I'm going to call on anybody who wants to speak here. And I said we'll stay here all night. But let's give the floor to someone when they're speaking. They deserve to be heard. I respect what everybody said here tonight. I think it's great. And as Trustee Trilling said, I think it's super that you're all here. And I love hearing what our residents have to say. And I respect you all, and I respect what you have to say. And I certainly will take it into consideration in anything I do. And I hope we all respect each other. But let's respect each other while we're talking. Trustee Trilling, please proceed.
Thank you. There was nothing underhanded done. Whatever may have been said or whatever may have been interpreted, I can tell you as a trustee for the Village of Buffalo Grove, nothing was done underhanded. And that's why I appreciate your comments, because obviously somewhere along the way, and I don't know for what reason or what source or what avenue that this occurred, but I would offer to you that everyone here has the best interests of everyone else. And it doesn't mean that necessarily that it's going to go one way or the other, because there is a majority. There's other things that involve this procedure that are not brought forward at this point in time relative to the actual proposal that is in a forthcoming meeting. Today was just merely what I perceived as a text amendment. How do we control this situation so that the best interests of Buffalo Grove are served? Much like the same way when I sat here regarding adult entertainment. And that is the way that I move forward with this proposal in my interpretation of why we were moving this forward. There's obviously another interpretation that is being brought up tonight. And I will have to think about that and what effect it has on our residents. But I offer to you that everyone here had the best intentions of keeping the people informed and what the purpose of tonight's meeting was versus a purpose that was going to occur potentially 2 weeks from today. Thank you.
Trustee Glover.
Thank you, Elliot. One thing I guess I'm a little bit offended by what people consider to be a surreptitious nature of this. Lisa asked me about the 8 on the 8s, okay? On Channel 6, our board meetings are taped and run at 8 o'clock in the morning, at 8 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. You have a chance, I suppose unless you have a dish or something like that, to watch the board meetings. We also post our minutes on our website. We post our agenda for the meetings on our website. So I understand that not everybody watches Channel 6. We normally don't have anybody in the audience at our board meetings. Unless there's a hot button issue, we talk to the TV cameras because that's the only people here besides our staff. So we're always happy to see people come to our board meetings, and I hope people will start coming more often, because I think it's informative. I do know that when I am out and about, the number of people that come up to me and said, "I watch the board meetings." And I said, "Boy, you must really be bored." But they do. They watch the board meetings, and they do it on a regular basis. The board meetings run on a 2-week period. They will run until the next board meeting. This board meeting will start running by, Bill?
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. And will run through the May 18th meeting.
Unless we're still here.
Unless we're still here. And so, you know, I guess to say that things are done surreptitiously isn't true. We haven't tried to hide anything from anybody. We don't do that. I've been on this board for 14 years. I've also been on this board when I've known that this room is filled when there is a major issue that affects people's psyches, their feelings, their backgrounds, whatever. That's when the room is filled. The rest of the time, as I said before, it's not filled. We like people to come to our meetings. It's nice to talk to people instead of TV cameras. So it's wonderful that you're all here tonight. It's wonderful that you've gotten up and spoken. And I know some of you are here that haven't gotten up and spoken, and maybe you're not comfortable with speaking in front of an audience. We don't bite. At least I haven't bitten anybody recently. So I just want to say that I feel like I'm being accused of something which I have not done, and I take exception to that. I am sure that some of the other people sitting up here on the dais take exception to that as well. We haven't hid anything. You can watch the TV channel. You can go on our website, and the things are there. And so I just ask all of you to please take advantage of that. Take advantage of what we offer you. And maybe it didn't make it into the Village News, but the Village Newsletter goes out, everything has to be in at least 60 days before it ever goes to the publisher, to the printer. And the others, I don't know. I've been gone for 10 days. But all I do know is nothing was hidden. There's no hidden agenda. I have no hidden agenda. I don't believe anybody else up here does either, including my new fellow trustees. So I just ask for you to understand that we do the best that we can, and we represent the entire village of Buffalo Grove, and we listen to people, because people have said, come to us outside of the village, and if they're in favor of something, they don't come to the meetings. So just keep that in mind. I'm sure we'll have a room full on May 18th, and I would expect that. But, oh, okay. But at any rate, thank you all for your comments, but nothing was done underhanded, and I want you all to know that nothing was done surreptitiously. Thank you.
Trustee Brimm.
Thank you. I am also offended at the inference of any impropriety. We have consistently, in the 20-some years I've been involved, generally in the 18 years I've been on board, communicated with our residents in the full manner as possible. It's no different than when we discussed gun legislation 17, 16 years ago. No different when we discussed smoking regulations just a couple of years ago. The same way. Those were no less critical. There was no less concerns with them or concerns with them or the passage or denial of those. But just to throw it out there to make it sound like we're the bad guys, I think is irresponsible. But I guess that may be what we're going to be seeing in the future. I hope not. But this is only the one leg, and you can't necessarily stand all the time on one leg. You need both legs. We're going to do something tonight. We possibly may pass it, maybe not. I don't know. But that doesn't mean it's a done deal. as I've told the gentleman when he asked me straight out, yes, my general feeling is I don't have a problem generally with OTB. I think in 6 months from now, people are going to think that it's not even there anymore. It's going to be so unobtrusive that you're not going to know it's there. But I respect the people who are here. I respect their opinions. I've also talked to people outside this room who've told me both ways that yes, they're in favor, a lot of them, some of them are not. And we've had the discussion. But that discussion is not for tonight necessarily. It's for 2 weeks or a month from now. And I'm going to look at that proposal. And that's one of the reasons why I asked village staff to send the draft ordinance that we may be looking at so that all the trustees can look at it and study it and understand what we're talking about and not say, oh, I just got it Thursday night or Friday, I haven't had a chance to review it, I need more time. I asked them to send it so we all have enough time to look at, see what the regulations are, what the restrictions are, to see whether or not it's the right thing to do. The vote tonight doesn't necessarily mean if 4 people vote for it, it's not going to pass. If 5 people do, that doesn't mean we're going to have it anyway. We're going to look at everything, at least I am. I'm sure, knowing my other trustees for as long as I have, I'm sure they'll do the same thing. We don't do anything just off the cuff. We don't do things because we have hidden agendas. We do it because we think it's a betterment. You may disagree, that's fine. I respect that, I understand that. Hopefully you will respect our opinions too. But this is not, even if it passes tonight, that does not mean it's a done deal. There's a lot more work to be done. Just want you to understand that. Thank you.
Trustee Stone.
Go ahead, Nan.
1 second.
Well, she could go first if you want.
You.
Oh, okay. First, I want to say to Trustee Trilling, I wasn't suggesting phone alerts. I was simply suggesting, and I guess this would go to Deanne as well, the simple act of putting it on the weekly news, hate to say it again, but you keep talking about how you've tried. If you didn't put it on the email that has, go home and look at your email, on your weekly email, your e-news, it has everything on there. How did you miss that? And if you missed that, how did you miss the Village News Magazine? And then if you even missed that, you missed the Daily Blotter, which it is on today. So apparently I was getting through to you on that point. So the fact that you're saying there should have been phone alerts, no, I'm not going to the extreme there should have been phone alerts. But certainly, as Dan mentioned, when the room only fills when there's major issues of a great magnitude and gravity. This clearly is one. I hope you are finally realizing that. And the fact that it required notification to the community. And that's all I'm trying to point out to you guys. The vehicles that we have for communication should be taken advantage of. Why it wasn't on this issue, and I understand that you're feeling attacked, but anytime someone like that has a different concept, it is a little rocky at first. But I do think there has to be change, and maybe this is what it took to wake you guys up. The community does want to know, and they want to be alerted. They want communication, and yes, it is irresponsible. And if that is a bad term to use, when you don't communicate with 45,000 people that you're going to pass legislation that is going to be the text for passing gambling, and you think that you've done your due diligence by simply counting on the Herald or the Countryside and putting it on 8 on 8 so that people have to go watch TV or they've got to go to the village website. You had so many other vehicles. I personally find it outrageous that you didn't use those vehicles on a matter that clearly by tonight, Dan, as you said, the room only fills when it's a major issue. This was a major issue. That's why you saw everyone tonight. And we could only get to them in 48 hours. Imagine how the room that will fill. We'll fill Stevenson Stadium if that's what you need. They don't want it, and now you're seeing it. Let me also say that you talk about how the board has been run, and you've never seen anything like this. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Sometimes that's what government needs, it needs a change sometimes. And I think that, by the outpouring of the community today, that's saying that they do want some change. And I hope that you're going to actually vote no against this tonight, and I think you've heard enough as a sampling of the community. You're only going to hear more of it. Like I said, you don't have one person here in favor, so I think that's a pretty good sampling to you. I took it to Facebook, to AOL. I had nobody. Well, I had one person saying, well, if they're going to go to Wheeling anyway, then we may as well take it. That was one out of 50 or 75. I had so many no's. I hope you'll just turn it down now and hear the community. Why go further? If you really don't want gambling, then you should hear what they're saying and saying, you know what, I hear you. And then people will respect that. I don't understand why you would pursue it further. You're only going to irritate people even more.
Okay. Well, we got a couple audience members who want to speak. I'll let Herman and then this young lady.
My name is Herman Heffler. I live at 941 Dublin Lane.
You want to go to the microphone, please? You've got a loud voice, but nonetheless, otherwise you won't be heard in the homes of Buffalo Grove.
First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Trilling, Mr. Brimm, Mr. Hartstein, Mr. Rabian, Mr. Berman, and Dan Glover, and Jeffrey Brayman for making the best decisions they could over these many years. And Ms. Stone, they will make the right decision with or without your abuse. I served this village many years. I served on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I sat on the other side of some terrible debates with some terribly disappointed citizens having had decisions go against them. It is not easy being green, that fellow said. And when you have 19 years worth of service, then you will know it's not so easy being green. It's very easy to be very arbitrary, but it is not so easy to be thoughtful and kind and considerate and deliberate in your speech. It is very hard to retract those words that you spoke this evening. I thank Mr. Racer for the many years of help he has given to this village and kind counsel that he has given to this village. This village has been run by some very, very nice people who have never been perfect every day, otherwise they would be someplace else. But they have given their best for very little compensation and very little thanks. I am very disturbed. I came here for cake and cookies for two people who were newly elected to a very important place. By the way, of those 45,000 people, how many people voted for you?
2,091.
I rest my case. Thank you.
Second highest vote. And it was just one hand behind her back.
Oh,
Yes, please.
Nancy Finkel, 69 Woodridge. I just don't understand. You see the outcome of the community, and obviously we haven't all heard about what was going on. What is so terrible to wait and see and talk to some more people and see what's going to happen? Why does it have to be tonight? I mean, you have all these people here saying that they don't want it. This is our community, and $70,000? I mean, come on. That's nothing. I just don't understand. Why does it have to be tonight? This could go on for hours and hours. Why don't you just say, like, hey, okay, we've heard the people. Let's think about this. Let's talk to some more people. And do it at the next meeting or in 2 weeks. Why does it have to be tonight? Bottom line, I just don't understand. Does anybody have an answer? Why does it have to be tonight that this is voted on? If you see how everybody's feeling about this?
Okay. The question's been asked. I think we're being.
Well, why? I haven't heard an answer.
If you have another point, if you have any point to make, please make your point.
I didn't hear your answer.
Pardon?
I didn't hear the answer to the question, though.
The answer, it's on the agenda. It's been moved and seconded, and we have a procedure that we follow, and that's what we're trying to do. We want to hear what people have to say. That's what this is all about tonight. We believe in hearing what people have to say. Yes, or what? If not, hoping that nothing repetitive, please.
Just quickly again,
Yes.
when I heard the two people that speak for it, and that's fine, that's your opinion. But what I didn't hear in that, and I'd like to stress again, do you know or have anybody close to you that has an addiction? And know the effects that it has to you and your family. And if one person in Buffalo Grove loses their home, loses loved ones, gets into an accident, drinking and gambling, and gets frustrated because they lost their home, or any of that, it's not worth it. Please, don't bring this into our community. Yes, 90% of the people will have fun, and it'll be a good experience, but that 10%, 1%, you're not considering that. And if it happens to one person, are you saying that's worth it? That's why we shouldn't have gambling in the United States. We do, but we don't have to have it here. We don't have to promote it. We don't have to make it accessible for my son, my wife, my friends, my neighbors. Please don't allow it. There's no need for it.
And I just want to, if I could clear something up or try to get something cleared up. Part of the issue tonight has been whether or not this is to approve a text amendment or if it was to approve the off-track betting. And part of the confusion could probably come from our own notice of public hearing for the Plan Commission meeting where the petitioner is listed as the off-track betting location. I'm not talking about the location of Adams Rib. I'm talking about the actual text amendment. That's who's listed, and that could have been what's leading to some of these issues, which might be a reason why you might wish to have somebody else entertain a motion to go back and talk about it again. I won't go back over the things that have already been said, but I do wish to point out one thing. Not everybody in the village has access to our village cable system. If you live, at least in my subdivision that was annexed after the agreement, and I don't know about other parts of the village that were annexed after the franchise agreement was formed, we can't get it. I just want to point that out.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, and anything we can do to always improve in communication, we always want to improve. We can always do better on everything. But we can always do better on anything. Otherwise, we wouldn't be a growing, thriving community learning from our experiences. But I think we do a pretty good job of trying to keep people informed. If we can do better on anything, I certainly welcome suggestions from any of our trustees and any from people in the audience. But I think we do a pretty good job, generally speaking. Sir, go ahead.
My name is Craig Friedman. I live at 10 Marquette Place in the Chevy Chase subdivision, basically across the street from Adams Rib. For myself, I personally don't really care who said what to who, when, about the communication. I happen to have found out about it, and I'm here, and that works for me. I might suggest that you might have underestimated a little bit how passionate some of the residents might have been, and therefore the next time you have a controversial issue, go extra out of your way to make sure people don't feel like they heard about it secondhand, even if you're putting stuff out there. But, you know, I do a lot of communication in my job, and it's not an easy thing to do. I guess I have one question principally. I'm trying to follow some of the legal stuff. If someone could answer it for me. If this motion right now doesn't pass, the text amendment, which I'm not sure I really understand,